Hello, welcome back. We'll be. This is. Oh, jeez. This is a continuation of our life beginnings and always. Yep. We're still on step 2 and stuff, so yeah. Yeah, I'm just gonna continue on playing the game now, so yeah. The family shopping trip had lasted most of the morning, and you still had to unload everything from the trunk before you could go enjoy the afternoon. You cradled another bag in your arms as you headed towards your house. It was one of the heavier bags from the grocery stores, loaded with fresh apples, ripe tomatoes, a bunch of carrots, and even half a watermelon. Ma came out of the front door and paused just ahead of you.
It's no trouble.
Need any help with that, Airi? I could bring the rest. I could bring it the rest of the way if you want me to. Yep. Ma stepped forward to take the bag from your arms, and you headed back to the car to grab a new one. This time you got a smaller bag with a loaf of fresh bread and a couple of packets of dried pasta spirals. You passed Ma again on your way back home to the house, and she gave you an encouraging grin and rustled her fingers through your black hair. You set the next bag on the counter. Your older sister began to root around inside for the contents with a sigh. How much is left? Still a few more bags. With a huff and puff, Elizabeth continued putting away the groceries, and you retreated out of the kitchen before you could become a target of a bad mood.
Be careful!
Careful, Airi. You hadn't been looking where you were going and bumped right into Mum, almost stepping on her toes to boot. Sorry. I can give you a pass this time, but be sure to watch where you're going. If you run into the wrong person, you might get your license revoked. I'm not driving a car. She grinned at the bad joke as you continued through the door. Outside, Ma had started organizing what remained and putting back any loose objects that had fallen out during the trip. When you stepped up to the trunk beside her, she took in a big breath of air, her dress gently swaying around in the breeze.
That's a shame.
It's a shame we had to spend the morning cooped up in that shopping center. It's a beautiful day, don't you think? You tilted your head to the sky, gazing at the clear blue expanse. Indeed it is. You closed your eyes and enjoyed the way the sun warmed your face for a few moments, before turning back to help Ma with the groceries. Oh, hi Cove. You noticed Mum wave over to Cove, who had just exited out of his front door, his surfboard propped up under one arm. Let me see. Surfboard and wetsuit. Where might you be off to on this beautiful day? Cove flinched at being called to so suddenly. He hadn't realized there were people out here already, but he quickly recovered. Cove stayed on his side of the driveway, giving a small wave in greeting. After a moment or two of deliberation, he jogged over to properly say hello to you and your mums. Hello, honey. Hey, Cove. He adjusted the surfboard under his arm a little getting a better grip on it.
Hey.
Hey. If you want to go to the beach, we could hang out there later.
Cool.
I'll see you, Airi. Yeah. You watched as Cove headed off towards the beach, unable to hide your grin, knowing that you'd be joining him soon. Once everything had finally been taken in and put away, you got yourself ready to meet Cove at the beach. Yeah, I don't know how to surf. You said the same thing to your parents, and while Ma laughed a little, Mum gave you a smile.
Well,
You'll just have to go there and see what happens. Cove must have been so excited to invite you there that he forgot you don't surf. Or he's hoping you'll go to watch him so he can show off. Oh yes, I used to do that. I know, hun. I experienced Airi's situation firsthand. I was stuck on the shore too. You noticed what I was doing. Yes, after the very first time, it's not a subtle move. How embarrassing. I was still impressed.
aww.
Aw, thank you. Wow, Ma.
Hey.
Hey, what are you still doing here? Go on, have your fun. You're only young once, but don't do anything I wouldn't have. Okay. At your parents' prodding, you hurried to leave the house and head down to the beach. When you arrived to the shore, you were greeted by the crash of waves and soft calls of seagulls. You took in a lungful of ocean air and felt your peachy skin warm in the sun. You noticed a small setup nearby with a towel, some sunscreen, and a bottle of water. It must be Cove's. You spotted Cove himself nearby. He hadn't gone out to sea yet. He was just sitting in the sand at the water's edge, his board propped up beside him. You strode up beside him. Hey, I'm here. Airi. He looked up at you with a smile and quickly hopped to his feet. I was gonna go in on my own soon. It kinda seemed like you weren't coming. You don't have to say it like that. It's okay. Then he cast his eyes out towards the waves. Oh. He looks pretty embarrassed to have that laid out so plainly.
Don't worry about it.
I don't have to go out. I'll stay with you on the shore. Or if you want, you could use one of my other boards. I could teach you. I'm kind of curious on what the options are here. Wait, I want to try that. You had agreed to come to the beach to spend time with Cove. You couldn't do that if he was out surfing. He stuck his board more securely into the sand. Okay, what do you want to do? Would you want to collect shells? Always, let's go. Oh. Cove found the first notable shell. It was a pearlescent purple on the inside and completely intact. Nice. You continued to stroll down the beach, each of you picking up anything neat that was spotted. You found half of what must have been an impressive conch shell and a shimmering slice of sea glass. Cove gestured for you to take a look at his latest find. Right at the edge of the water, two nearly identical shells had washed up. You You each took one and joked about having friendship shells now. It made you reminiscence about how long you had known each other and how many times you've collected shells like this. You wonder how many times you felt you'd find shells together in the future. The two of you gathered quite the collection, combing up and down the beach. When Cove couldn't comfortably carry anymore as his wetsuit had no pocket, you both sat down and went over to your respective hoards. You traded a few shells for his, and he gave you a pretty spiral shell for your sea glass. It was a rewarding afternoon with a good friend. Oh. The setting sun was visible on the ocean. Every time you would look away, it had sunk a little lower. The beach was darkening but still pleasantly warm. Cove pointed out the sunset. There was something particularly striking about it that day. When you glanced over at Cove, you saw a lazy smile on his face. Hey, what are you thinking about? Nothing, exactly. It's just been nice. You picked up a shell and fidgeted with it. The inner part was smooth to the touch. I get that. You chatted a little more until the conversation truly died out and all you heard was the rhythmic sound of waves. Then Cove sighed. The day can't be over, not yet. He scowled into the distance, as if the sun exiting the sky was a personal offense. Don't you think it should be longer? Let's just save this for now. Let's save it here. I don't know. Cove was still dripping in salt water, so he wasn't sure what the alternative was. Wetsuits were fine for the beach and not much else. It wasn't a good idea for him to lug his surfboard around town either. Yeah, let's do something. Cove nodded with a smile. Then he looked down the shore with wide shining eyes. There's at least one place that's always okay to hang out in, no matter what time it is, the park. You nodded. The park was virtually always empty. Even Elizabeth only went over there nowadays if she was looking for you. How times had changed. She used to be so protective of the place. In fact, the only person who there was a chance of running into might be that Jeremy kid again. Oh yeah, him. You brought up the idea to Cove and he cringed, but I'm still going. The sun is still there, a little. I'm staying out as long as it is. Yeah, let's tag along. Okay, let's go. Cove took a minute to put his stuff in order. He made sure to get it all, though didn't take much care to shake the sand off. You dealt with your own things. Yeah. The two of you finished at about the same time. As a final touch, Cove plucked his glasses off the beach and put them back on his face. He looks more like himself now. He led the way down the beach to the park. It wasn't far, so it didn't take you long at all. The sun still hadn't completely disappeared just yet when you made your arrival. Cove stuck his surfboard upright in the sand and tossed his towel over the top. By now, Cove looked mostly dry. The summer breeze on your skin kept you pleasantly warm. Cove idly went over the monkey bars. He grabbed them, feet flat on the ground, and pretended to go across. He had definitely grown in the past few years. Yeah, no duh. You were still short enough to use the monkey bars yourself. Sometimes being tiny had its perks. Agreed. You were still short enough to use— oh, it didn't— okay. When you got to a bar in the middle, Cove pulled himself and— oh shit. Cove pulled himself up and through, then sat on top of the bars. His legs dangled off the side of the bar he perched on. Eeny, meeny, miny, oh frick, okay. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I can't choose. Wait, let's just... You look above yourself to inspect the monkey bars. You might have been short, but that just gave you more experience in climbing things. You leaped and grabbed at one of the bars, using the momentum to swing yourself up. It took a little more scrambling, but you made it to the top. Cove seemed impressed. You settled on the monkey bar like it was a throne. You didn't get to be above everything often. Hello, hello. So what you missed out basically the main character got back. Nah, it's fine, it's fine. You've missed all you've missed is just that the main character got back from shopping with their parents, and then they proceed to hang out with Cove at the beach. So yeah, that's all that happened. Guess what? He smiled broadly and raised an eyebrow. He's not here. Right, it was true. There wasn't a single sign of Jeremy. Looks like it was just going to be the two of you tonight. Cove hung his head and groaned dramatically. Your eyes widened when he whipped his head back up.
No way!
I can't believe how dumb my parents are for forcing me to come to this stupid place. You were taken aback and blinked for a second before you realized he was quoting Jeremy. Haha. Cove chuckled back at you, a mischievous glint in his eyes. You looked around the old park, the streets you knew like the back of your hand, and the beach. These were your stomping grounds. You wondered how Cove actually felt. How much his joke... What? Oh, how much was his joke? Well, was his joke just a joke? And how much sincere dislike of this place. Moving had never been his choice. Let me just switch off the heater. Do you really have to ask that, Airi? Cove kicked his legs carelessly as they dangled. He smiled softly. I like you here. I really do. It's a nice place. Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine today. Nothing much has happened like these days. You? How are you today? How was your day, I think I should say, but I don't know. He didn't hesitate. There was no uncertainty. That was his genuine opinion. Wait, can you hear properly, or is my voice too quiet right now? Was it okay? Wait, what did he say? I nodded wordlessly. A contented feeling fell between the two of you. Oh no, that must have... Oof. I hope your back gets better, or maybe, or something. Oh. It didn't take long for the day to finally draw to a close. The sun was gone and it was dark. Oh, okay, that's good. That's good. You chatted a while longer, but it was definitely winding down. I wish this day was longer. His feet kicked out and made him look like a pouty child. Oh well. Cove sighed. It was time to go home. He hopped down from the monkey bars with a thump when his feet hit the ground. You clambered down the monkey bars yourself. You lowered yourself more slowly than Cove, barely made a sound when your feet reached the ground. Cove grabbed his surfboard and threw his towel around his neck. With his water bottle in hand, he was ready. You both began your trek up the road. It was a quiet night and you didn't run into anyone else. In what felt like no time at all, you had reached your street. As you walked, Cove smiled to himself. It was a soft expression and you couldn't help but wonder what put it there. Everything okay? I just remember when we were younger, it used to be such a big deal to come home after dark. You could indeed recall. If you got sandy, your parents would have something to say. If you got wet, your parents would have more to say. That is true. And if you came home after dark, well, your mums and his dad better have said it was okay beforehand. You used to need permission for everything. That small comment he made exposed just how much freedom you really had this summer. Indeed, he hot. This is actually him 13 years old. This is just his 13-year-old self, that's all I can say. Cove looked up into the sky, a smile still on his face as the two of you walked side by side, reminiscing. When you came to your houses, you turned to each other. Bye. Bye-bye. Goodbye. Cove waved and you both turned around to your respective houses. This was a pleasant end to the outing, you thought. And then summer ended, JK. Oh, it has different colors. Oh, wait, what? Oh, growing. Early one afternoon, you found yourself in the living room with your family. It was another one of those summer days where it felt too hot to go outside, but it was too uncomfortable to do anything inside either. The air conditioner was cranked up as far as you could negotiate with, but everyone was still being pretty lazy. Oh, it's one of those days. You, your mums, and your sister were lounging around while the TV blared on in the backdrop, ignored by all of you. You specifically were lying spread eagle on the carpet, sitting cross-legged on the floor, perched on the arm of the couch, draped over the coffee table. I think I do that. You looked out the windows at the backyard. Not that there was anything of particular interest to watch. Elizabeth broke the silence with a loud groan. You glanced over. She was lying on her back over the couch, massaging her calf with one hand. Ugh, I feel terrible. I'm dying in this house and my legs hurt. Mom looked up from the magazine she'd barely been flipping through and frowned, concerned. Could you have strained them somehow? Elizabeth flailed briefly, then flopped onto her side with a heavy sigh. I don't know. It just hurts.
Sweetie.
Oh, sweetheart. Ma got up from her seat at the kitchen table and walked over to your sister. She did a light pat on Elizabeth's shoulder sympathetically. I'm sorry you have to deal with that. Maybe it's growing pains? You could be taller by next fall. Elizabeth scoffed. She didn't look impressed by Ma's assessment. I'd rather be my height forever than deal with this. Mum walked over too, leaning against the back of the couch. Kids, they grow up fast. Soon, Elizabeth will have a home on her own, maybe even with a nice husband and some kids, if she feels like it. She sniffed loudly and wiped at her eye, but you could tell that it was just a bit. You tilted your head, even though you knew Elizabeth liked guys. It was hard to imagine her with a boyfriend or husband. She seemed only invested in hanging out with a group of friends, not chasing after boys. Ma must agree with you, because she shook her head.
Now.
Let's not exaggerate, she's still practically a child. But if you ever do pursue romance, Elizabeth, you can come talk to me about it. Definitely, we're always willing to lend an ear. Lol. Elizabeth's features contorted in disgust.
No.
No way, I'm not talking to my mums about this. Mum's jaw dropped, and she gasped in an exaggerated display of shock. Her hand came up to the rest of her cheek. Oh wait. Her hand came up to rest against her chest. Ma only grinned. She didn't look offended. Oh, hello. Hello. Ma only grinned. She didn't look offended by Elizabeth's quick response at all. It really wouldn't be so bad to come to us. I know what it's like to have a crush on a pretty boy or two. I don't, but I can listen anyway. Mom snorted at her own joke, while Ma burst into giggles. They were having a little too much fun at Elizabeth's expense. Elizabeth certainly wasn't feeling the amusement, because she rolled her eyes and sat up.
Thanks.
I'm going back to my room. I'd rather mount alone. Thanks. She strode off towards the staircase, taking the steps 2 at a time. Your mom stared after her, then turned to each other with raised eyebrows. Whoops, looks like we scared her off with all that romance talk.
Well?
Oh well, we'll get her next time. You watched them titter with some surprise. Obviously your mom's like women, but you had no idea that Ma liked guys too. This was the first time you heard her say something like that. Ma, I always thought you only liked ladies. You like guys too? Ma turned to you, happy to bring you into things now that you'd spoken up. She smiled and nodded. That's right, I like both. But I like your mum most of everyone. She's special. Ma's smile turned all soft in the corners, like it usually did when she looked at her. She pinched Mom's cheek lightly. Mum reached up to cup a hand over Ma's. Even when Ma stopped pulling her cheek, their hands remained clasped together. Aww.
You're fantastic.
Wait, let me take a sip. Thanks, Lani. Oh, thanks. Oh, what? Thanks, Lani. I think most women have charm, but no one can hold a candle to you.
Aww.
Aw, Pamela. I'm still confused on who's who. Ma beamed, then kissed Mom on the cheek she'd been pinching before. Let's go with this one. You smiled to yourself at the sight. No matter how often your mums expressed their feelings for each other, it was always nice to witness it. Ma looked back to you, letting Mum's hand go with a brief squeeze. She settled down next to you and Mum followed soon after. You know, I'm also here to listen to you whenever you're ready. That offer isn't just for Elizabeth. Oh no. She bumped her shoulder with yours, a reassuring smile in place. There's no rush, of course. You can take all the time you need to figure out what or who you want.
It's okay.
Don't think you have to stick with whatever you came up with right now either. Life's nice that way. It can change and you can learn. Mum nodded her agreement. The two of us are happy to hear you out, and we may be able to relate better than you think. Still, we won't push the topic, at least most of the time. She gave Ma the weakest scathing look possible, while being unable to stop grinning. Yeah. You weren't sure what to say to that. Mum let out a rather exaggerated sniffle. It didn't take a genius to realize it was fake. First Elizabeth, and now you, Airi. Do you have to grow up? Yes, children tend to do that from time to time. Your parents quickly grew absorbed in their conversation about rearing kids. You took that as your cue to leave, getting up so you could spend some time alone in your room too. They let you go without problem, so you made your way up the stairs. You let out a sigh once you stepped into your room. It was just as sweltering in there as it was in the living room, possibly even a little warmer. You couldn't even open your window since it was hotter outside, and you just let the AC out. You dragged your feet as you crossed the room. You checked your current sweltering condition in the mirror as you passed by it. You thought back to the conversation you'd had downstairs about growing up and all that. Oh. After a moment, you stepped a bit closer to the mirror. You stared into it, then turned away from the surface to look down at yourself. You were definitely growing alright. It was weird thinking about how you were now in comparison to what you'd been when you were younger. Oh man, I used to do that from time to time. When it came to your body, yeah. You shifted to the side, your head still facing forward and continuing the self-evaluation from this viewpoint. Yeah, let's go with that. You tried to imagine what your adult self might look like. You ran a fingertip over your birthmark. That was something that'd been consistent for you. You took a step back, finished with your impromptu inspection. You locked eyes with your reflection, cocking your head to the side. All things considered, you thought you looked fantastic. No. I don't know. Oh, it's either these two. Let's go with this one. You tilted your head over to the opposite side, but you still couldn't find anything that had much of an opinion on. You shook your head roughly, putting thoughts of what you were turning into out of your mind. This wasn't the time to focus on such things. You had to find something to do with this heat. You shuffled over to your bed, collapsing onto the mattress, your brow scrunched up in thought. Time passed slowly, and to your annoyance, possible ideas about what? Yeah, some slight existential crisis. Time passed slowly, and to your annoyance, possible ideas about what to do were few and far between. You weren't sure how long it had been, but eventually you heard your mom calling you from downstairs. Airi, there's a call for you. Cove wants to come over. Is that alright? You perked up at the words, sitting up in bed. You yelled back to her immediately. Yeah. Oh. You got to your feet and headed downstairs, eager to see your friend. You needed to go downstairs soon anyways, because your empty stomach told you it was almost time for lunch. Just as you reached the bottom of the stairs, you saw Mum put the phone back on the receiver. She glanced at Ma, leaning her hips against the kitchen counter.
What a pickle.
Well, here comes trouble. We better prepare ourselves. Ma clicked her tongue in clear disapproval of Mum's words. He's such a good boy. Cove never wants to cause trouble. He can just be a bit thoughtless and impulsive. Yeah, I can agree with that. Oh, I know. He's very sweet, but that's what makes it more of a problem. Wait, what? If a stranger or some kind of kid from school was egging Airi to behave badly, I think we can both agree that she'd do the right thing in the end. But if Cove Holden got into a reckless mood and wanted Airi to be a part of the ride, can we really be certain on what she'd make then? Do they not trust me on my decisions?
Yes.
Yes, I think so. Airi helps Cove settle down. He could have gotten himself in even more trouble without her. Yeah, I can imagine that.
Thanks.
You have a point. Ma just laughed. As she turned away, still snorting, her eyes met yours. She blinked in surprise, then waved at you with an easy grin. Mum looked over, noticing you at the foot of the stairs as well. Oh, I didn't expect you to calm down already, Airi. I just wanted to let you know what was happening. I'm just gonna pretend I didn't hear that. Yeah, it's okay. I just got here. From the way Mum and Ma exchanged amused glances, you got the feeling that they didn't believe you. Thankfully, they didn't correctly accuse you of lying. Sure. Well, we'll just get out of the way. You and Cove take care. You couldn't help but flush when Mum winked. Mum elbowed her, even as a smile tugged at her lips. Oh, she shipped them, the MC and him together. Honestly, this lady. Your mums whispered against themselves as they went down the hall. Eventually, you heard the faint sound of the bedroom door shutting. Now, you were alone in the living room, tasked with waiting for Cove. And that was just fine with you. If it hadn't been so hot outside, you would have visited him at his house a long time ago. You took a seat at the kitchen counter and settled in for the wait. As expected, there was a knock on the door a few minutes later. When you got up and answered it, your neighbor was standing on the other side. He had come in once you stepped aside to let him pass, giving a little wave. You greeted him as you typically did. With a wave. You waved back, closing the door behind him with your free hand. Cove sighed and wiped at his face. What? Cove sighed and wiped at his face a bit. You noted the sheen of sweat across his brow. He must be glad to be back in an air-conditioned place, even if he only had to walk across the street to get there. Damn, must have been pretty hot, huh? Is something going on? Why do you want to come over? I don't want to do anything, not when it's like this. But yeah, I can agree with that. I can relate. He gestured vaguely to the humid air hanging around. I thought I could at least do nothing with you. Yeah. You might have done the same thing. Have you had lunch yet? I was gonna do it soon. He shook his head.
Not really.
I haven't really felt like eating because of the heat. I probably should have lunch. I didn't have breakfast this morning. Well, he's like me. Someone who skips both breakfast and lunch for no reason. Wait, what did he say before? Oh, it's... but seriously, you should probably not skip lunch at all. I mean, I guess it's somewhat okay to skip breakfast, especially if you have something going on, but lunch, probably not a good idea to skip lunch. Yeah. Wait, and then he shook his head. I really felt. Yeah, I get that sometimes. My parents don't like it when I do that, though. Mine don't either, but they'll ask if I ate here when I go back home. As one, you headed into the kitchen. You crossed your arms as you glanced around, wondering what you should scrounge up for a meal. I don't want to eat anything that's warmed up. Is there something cold or not cooked? Yeah. After a bit of back and forth, the two of you concluded... Pardon? The two of you concluded that you should raid the fridge and cabinet in order to make sandwiches. With that settled, you had planned to decide on the outside layers first. There was a wide variety to choose from, since everyone in your house had their own favorites. There was rye bread, wheat bread, sourdough, mixed grains, gluten-free bread, and pita pockets. Ooh, pita pockets. I want that.
Hey.
Could you take the grain one for me? Sure. You reached for the mixed grains, then made your decision. I want pita pockets. You pulled out the pita pocket too, setting both items onto the counter. Then you had to decide what main direction the sandwich would go in. Savory. I prefer savory. Something savory would make it feel like a real meal. Yeah, I agree. As for the specific ingredients. Hams, yes. Cucumber. Where the cucumber? Oh. Ham slice. Not tofu. Why? Why would you put tofu in sandwiches? Ooh, mozzarella. Pickles. Lettuce. Ew, onions. Oh, red onions and ew, tomatoes. Yeah, I agree. His eyebrows are hard to draw, actually. I tried to draw him at one point, and then I tried to draw his eyebrows, and I was like, I give up, I can't draw eyebrows. They're too different from how I usually draw eyebrows. I can't get them right at all. For the finishing touch, you intended to top your sandwich with... I'm kind of disappointed that they don't have tomato sauce or BBQ sauce. What even is ranch? What is ranch? I've never had ranch. Pesto sounds interesting. I'll go with pesto. And maybe mustard. Salt and pepper. This is going to be a confusing sandwich. Is it now a cooking game? No, I don't think it is a cooking game, and I've never tried most of those sauces except for like mustard. You nodded to yourself with a quiet hum, satisfied. The two of you bustled around the kitchen, opening and closing things in order to collect everything you needed for your individual sandwiches. You focused intently on assembling your own. For the most part, when you were close to being done, though you glanced over at your neighbor. Cove was putting his sandwich together delicately, his eyebrow furrowed and tongue sticking out just barely. There were open jars of peanut butter and honey near his pesto? Is yummy? Wait, what is it made out of, actually? Man, I should try my knowledge in sauces is not very big. There were open jars of peanut butter and honey near his plate, as well as a banana peel. Wait, that's a weird combo, but I'm not judging. So he was making a peanut butter, banana, and honey sandwich on mixed grain bread. I'm gonna go save for a moment and go like, it seemed weird. We would have done at least some things differently. Curiosity satiated. Curiosity satiated. Pardon. Curiosity satiated, you turned back to your plate and finished your own creation. By the time you were done, Cove had already cleaned up his workstation. He turned to face you, studying your sandwich briefly. You gave it an insidious look, but didn't question about it. Good. Yeah, don't judge my sandwich, mate. Done. Yeah. Cool. Oh. Basil, nuts and garlic. What kind of nuts? Sounds kind of tasty. Used in Italian food. Oh, so that's why I've never tried it. He waited as you quickly returned the ingredients and cleaned a few utensils. Then the two of you collected your respective plates. You both agreed on heading upstairs to hang out in your room. Satiate. I read that wrong. No, I read it wrong. Satiated, not satiate. No, it's fine. It's fine. I clearly read it wrong. You and Cove entered your bedroom while balancing your food on the plates. Nothing fell, so it was a successful trip. I agree with that. Cove took a seat on the ground, stretching out on the hard floor in an attempt to keep a bit cooler. He immediately took a big bite of his sandwich, chewed, then hummed happily. This sandwich is really good. At least that's something. At this point, you sat down and started your own sandwich. I'll go with this. I've never tried it, but it sounded tasty. Obviously, you are a pro at making sandwiches. I'm definitely not a pro though. He leaned back on his hands while chewing and glanced around. His every movement was sluggish. Yeah, it must have been really hot. Wanna do something? It seemed the plan of not doing anything at all had already worn thin, despite his lack of enthusiasm. Wait, what do you say? Why am I so bad at remembering this? Okay, let's go with like what? He rolled his head back, looking up at the ceiling. What about tic-tac-toe? Sure, why not? That escalated quickly. Wait, but they were just playing tic-tac-toe though. You put your plate to the side and pulled out some markers and scrap paper. As you laid everything on the floor, he scooted back to make more room in front of you. Cove picked up one of the markers with his right hand while keeping a half slice of sandwich in his left.
All right.
I want to be the X's so you can go first. I think that's fair. Okay, that works for me. You prepared to note down your first move, your marker hovering over the paper. Let's go with this. After the first round, you're about to take another bite of your sandwich when a thought occurred to you. I wonder if anyone turned off the TV downstairs. Yeah, that is true. I do wonder. The TV, it was on earlier, but no one was really watching. Then everyone started leaving the living room. I know I didn't turn it off. It might still be on downstairs when no one's there. Cove smiled crookedly at that. Poor show, playing when no one around to poor show, playing with no one around to enjoy it. What was it? You squinted off into the middle distance, trying to recall the show's name. I feel like it was some kind of crime-solving drama? Cove nodded sleepily, his eyes closed, then opened again with some effort. Can you give any specifics? Maybe I can guess it. I don't think you can with my memory. Well... You rested your chin on your open palm, groggily thinking as hard as you could. I remember there was a woman with long blonde hair, I think. She was the one solving crimes, like as a detective or something. There were scenes in a police station because someone got arrested. Man, that is... Turn off the TV, save the planet. Because someone got arrested? You lapsed into silence, the both of you thoughtful. Then Cove chuckled. It wasn't that funny, but you joined in the laughter anyway. I don't know what that is. Me neither, and I just saw it. Oh. Man, we're gonna get ties, aren't we? Another round came and went, and Cove grumbled as he readjusted himself. His features were twisted in a grimace. I feel so sticky. Ugh, I'm gonna be stuck on this floor forever now. I'll just go with this answer. It was always funny to hear Cove be so dramatic. You smiled to yourself. Then you returned to the game. No! Sure. I'm going back to my choices. Get me back to my choice. What the power of time traveling. Cove spoke up once more, catching your attention. He was peering down at the piece of paper between you, his expression thoughtful. You know, tic-tac-toe is such a weird name for a game. What does it even mean? I don't know what it means either. Yeah, I've always wondered about that. The two of you fell silent as you tried to puzzle out a logical answer. Eventually, you decided to just return to the game. Man, this is gonna turn into a tie, huh? By this point, Cove had finished his sandwich. Pardon, what in the world did I eat? All I had was fried rice and mushroom soup. Yours was almost gone too, but now you are getting thirsty. You brought it up to your neighbor. Should we go downstairs to get some drinks? I was thinking that too, but I don't really want to get up. I can relate to that. Me neither. You looked over at him, narrowing your eyes with false suspicion. Wait, why? But hey, what happened to you not being able to get up again because you were stuck on the floor? That's still true. I mean, we're not actually going, are we? I only thought about it. Okay. You rolled your eyes and dropped the issue, defeated. Cove grinned a little at your disappointment over his victory. We tied. No, I wanted to win. Oop, it's a tie. Were you out of it? I know I didn't try that hard. He smiled at you in an amused way. I don't know, I was trying very hard to beat you in tic-tac-toe, but we just ended up tying. You somehow weren't surprised by that, despite Cove being the one who suggested the game in the first place. He started to yawn, his hand coming up to cover his mouth. It quickly transitioned into a small laugh. He understood why. Yawning just as he said he was feeling disinterested was kind of a funny coincidence. No, watch it. Eeny, meeny, moe. I don't know what to choose. I'm gonna go save again and just go. Save again. Cove just grinned and flopped onto his back, leaving his marker on the floor beside him. You stayed seated, looking your friend over as he stretched himself out. You really are so tall now. Yeah, no, duh. He's already taller than me. What? Probably. Maybe. Maybe it was rigged. Haven't thought up of that. Cove snickered a bit at the random topic. He propped himself onto his elbows to meet your gaze. Why are you bringing that up? You shrugged. It made perfect sense to you to bring it up. Tired Airi. No, I'm just very bad at reading things out loud. Your mums were Your mums were talking about me and Elizabeth growing up, getting bigger and stuff.
Oh?
What kind of stuff? Well, Mum only likes women, and Mom likes women too, but not just women. Yeah? Since the two of you were engaged in conversation, Cove got back into a sitting position. He brought a knee up and rested his arm on top of it. A wistful expression overtook his face. I wonder when I'll know how I feel about that kind of thing. I don't know. You don't know? Cove shook his head. I heard at some point you're supposed to start liking types of people, guys or girls or whoever.
I don't know.
But I haven't. Nothing's changed. Maybe I have to grow up once more. You probably have to. No. No. His tragic backstory is the fact that he moved here because what was it? His mum and dad had a divorce, so now he moved to this beach with his dad to start a new life. Oh yeah, just saying it. In the first step he was really edgy and stuff, kind of sad and everything. Kind of rude to others in a way. Not that it was intentional, he was just very curious about some things, I guess. Maybe you just don't like anybody, or maybe you like all types of people. That's normal too. Cove seemed to appreciate that thought. If the smile that appeared on his lips were in the good lord, reading hard. Cove seemed to appreciate that thought. If the smile that happened on his lips were any indication. Oh, okay, what about you? Who do you like? Wow, what a direct question, huh? He turned his attention to you, looking encouraging. Why you gotta ask me this question? Yeah, let's go with that. I don't know how to answer any of this. It's got the blue one. But specifically when it came to how you felt towards boys. Yep, I don't know. Oh, is there an I don't know answer? For the people who want exclusively male or female. I don't know either. You returned your attention to Cove. He was waiting. Yeah, I'll just be straight. You returned your attention to Cove. He was sitting patiently for your response. Let's go with this one. He nodded understandingly at your attempt to describe how you felt. Then he scratched the back of his head sheepish. I'm not really sure how we ended up talking about all of that when we started out just playing tic-tac-toe. Oh my lord. But it was good, I think. Yeah, it did have a mind of its own. Cove chuckled a little bashfully. He glanced around, clearly scrambling for something else to say. So, have you heard from Lee recently? Yeah, actually, I'm really glad you brought it up. The conversation took a lighter turn after that, and it felt like you got closer that afternoon. Finally, they had a bonding moment. Nice. Finally, the blazing sun began to set. To your relief, the air cooled down a bit as a result. You pulled yourself off the floor, as did Cove, with some minor complaint. You both stretched your arms groaning and yawned into your hands. You glanced out of your window briefly, taking in the soft reds, pinks, and purples of the late afternoon sky. Somehow, you made it through the scorching hot day in one piece. Cove turned towards you, motioning towards your window with his chin. Wanna go outside? It might be better out there than it is here now. Sounds good. I could really use some fresh air. The two of you took your time heading downstairs. You stopped briefly to grab a drink of water, then continued your way. You stepped outside one after the other, your destination being the familiar hills behind. Your destination being the familiar hills behind your house. This time of day, it was quiet outside. The flowers blew gently in the wind, petals trembling but stubbornly hanging in there. You felt the breeze cool your heated skin, and you relaxed your shoulders. Cove closed his eyes and released its deep breath. I really love it out here. I'm with a view like that, yeah. You even have like some nice ocean out there. You have the ocean out there with the nice hill you could probably like lie down. That seems nice. I'll do that. Cove smiled. It was clear that he was enjoying it too. A beat passed, but his gaze wouldn't stray from your own. Huh? His voice was impossibly soft when he spoke up again. Wow, I'm glad I met you, Airi. You're really important to me, you know? I don't know what to choose. There we go. The two of you seemed kind of silly, standing and staring at each other, but you didn't care. Then Cove rested an arm on one of your shoulders, leaning against you. Even as the sun disappeared completely and the sky darkened, you and Cove remained side by side for as long as you possibly could. Hey, nice. Let me just save that again. Yes, please. Family. The sun warmed your skin from its place in the sky, and you closed your eyes, enjoying the mix of heat with the pleasant breeze that drifted past you. You and Lee had spread out a blanket on top of one of the hills behind your house, and had been relaxing there for a while now. Lee had come over earlier in the day, and while a range of activities had been discussed, from staying home to heading to the beach, a picnic on the hill, had been the choice you both settled on. A small spread was laid out in front of you. Some bottled water, soft drinks, as well as chips and sliced fruit. Sounds nice. Man, I want to try a picnic, but the last time I tried that with my friends, and the weather was just really windy. It was too windy to even try to do a picnic. That is to be expected of said weather, though. You sat up and reached for a snack, listening to Lee talk about the musical she had gotten to see a few days ago. It was unbelievable. There was singing, dancing, and crazy stunts, and it was all done live right in front of my face. Maybe one day we could go together. I gotta see more shows like that. You smiled at Lee's enthusiasm, knowing how much she enjoyed singing and performing. And she was good at it too. You had gotten the chance to hear her sing a couple of tunes, and you knew she put a lot of effort into it. Let's go with... I don't know, I'll go with this one. That didn't stop you from doing it though. I wonder if maybe we could put on our own show. Think of how fun it'd be. I don't think it'd be that fun. We could perform for our parents and ask our friends and some other people to come and watch too. It'd totally work. No thanks, no. Yeah, I don't know about that. I think I'll just stick with being in the audience. But wouldn't showing off to everybody be fun? The thought of an audience made you feel queasy. Not really.
Are you sure?
Are you really super sure? You have so many skills you could show off to the masses. Sorry. Your cousin seemed a little disappointed, but she nodded and respected your wishes all the same. The two of you laid back on the blanket and blazed in the sun, throwing ideas back and forth on what you could fill your time with. The beach was nearby, so you could go swimming or collect shells, or find something to do back at home after all. Wait, did I read that right? Oh, okay. In the end, nothing was tempting enough to move you from your current position, so you continued chatting with Lee and nibbling on your snacks while the sun traveled in the sky overhead. So, how are your neighbors doing? You haven't spoken about them lately. You knew Lee wasn't talking about neighbors generally, or down the street. She wanted to hear about the Holdens across the road. It was no secret that she liked to keep up to date on what was happening with them, or more specifically, Cove. There weren't many other people around your age to talk about. Yeah, that's understandable. They're okay. Cove and his dad was doing fine, and you didn't want to feel any unnecessary gossip. Lee loved to chat about others' relationships, and would always ask you for details on people you both knew. Hey, did you want to see if Cove would join the picnic? Yeah. Yesterday he said he and his parents were going out. They might be fishing on the docks by his dad's store. Aw, that's too bad. I bet he'll have a great time with his mum and dad though. The sun slowly began to set, the sky turning a rosy pink, and then warm orange. It's too bad Derek isn't in the neighborhood today. I like him. Yeah, he's a good person. I knew you'd think so. So, exactly how much do you like him? Or maybe there's someone else that I haven't heard of yet. Yay, snacks! Snacks are nice. Lee wriggled her eyebrows at you suggestively, and you knew exactly what she was implying. Oh, she's asking me if I have a crush on somebody, huh? Yeah, I can't answer that. Lee's eyes sparkled in an instant, like she just hit the jackpot.
What?
Oh wait, never mind. I'm not giving you a name. Tell me something else about them then. This news was just too exciting. She wasn't going to be deterred. You weren't surprised when Lee started squeezing you for more details, and you answered as much as you were comfortable with. The two of you walked about your preferences and who you liked and stuff. You found that it was nice having someone to speak with about these sorts of things, as long as they don't make fun of you for it, nor tell everyone else about it. Ugh. Like, jeez. There's a reason why, like, most people avoid those Finally, you both decided to pack everything up and head back home for the evening. Upon walking through the front door, you were met by Mums and Elizabeth hovering around each other in the living room. Tension hung thick in the air as the three of them turned to you and Lee frowning slightly. You had interrupted something. Exactly what, you weren't sure. Wow, who died? What's going on? Yeah, what's going on? Your mums looked at each other, wondering which one of them was going to speak first. Eventually, Mum cleared her throat and spoke.
Oh.
We're just having a talk with your sister. The room fell silent again, with no one quite knowing what to say. You felt incredibly awkward, but the silence didn't last long. You don't have to stop just because those two are here. There's no reason to try keeping it a secret. Elizabeth was mad, with her arms folded defensively over her chest, but your mums nodded in agreement with her.
Well...
Elizabeth was asking about her parents. Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure both the main character and Elizabeth here are like adopted, so yeah. Her biological ones. The world spun around you at the news. You couldn't understand why this was happening now. When you glanced at Lee, she shuffled her feet uncomfortably as though she didn't know if she should be here or not anymore. You didn't know either. Yeah, I'd rather just, avoid. Your mums had always been open and honest about the fact that neither of them had given birth to you or your sister, but the details hadn't been fully explained before. It made sense that Elizabeth didn't know a lot about her biological parents and wanted to know more. You just hadn't ever thought that you'd accidentally stumble into it. Elizabeth looked at your parents expectantly. She wasn't going to let the unintentional interruption derail things. We don't want to keep that information from either of you, but it's your right to know your past, and we did want to wait until you asked us to hear yourselves. Well, it's happening now, so... Your mums shared a nervous glance. Ma took in a quick breath before speaking again. I adopted you from the Philippines when you were just a baby. Elizabeth dropped her arms, her eyebrows shooting upwards in surprise. Wait, I wasn't born here?
No.
No, you weren't. You could clearly see that your sister was appalled by this information. You struggled even more with what to do or how to react. Am I gonna have to pass some test to even become a citizen?
No.
No, you're adopted into the country. We took care of things. You're already a citizen. You have nothing to worry about. I followed all the laws when it came to bringing a child into the US. Nothing can be held against you. Elizabeth sighed. Placated? Placated? Another word I don't know how to read. Plasticated? Plasticated? Is that the word? Plasticated with the information, but still far from happy. Who were my parents? As people, why did they put me up for adoption in the first place? Ma softly put her hands over Elizabeth's shoulder, trying to provide some support before she gave her answer.
I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry, sweetie. Your parents were reported to have died. Oof. They didn't go into the details on the specifics of how, but you're an orphan. Ouch, man. Damn. Oof. I wouldn't know how to react to that. I wish we had better news for you, Elizabeth. Elizabeth was torn between emotions, her eyes filled with tears as she threw her hands in the air, settling on enraged. Great, so I can never meet them, even if I wanted to. Not that I could have anyway, since they live in another part of the world where they were still alive. Placated. Oh, it's placated, not placitated. English is hard, even though it's my first language. Elizabeth turned her back on you and your mums and stormed off, sprinting up the stairs to enter her room before anyone could stop her. I have to go talk to her. Ma immediately started to follow her, but Mum gently held her by the arm and shook her head. We should give her a little space to process it all, yeah. Your ma's head hung low, but she stopped walking. With Elizabeth now gone, the two of you seemed to remember you and Lee were still... was still standing awkwardly off to the side. I'm sorry you had to see all of that. It's not how I expected. It would have happened when the time came. But since it's the topic of the day, Airi, is there anything you would like to ask? You deserve to know after all. No, I would like to know. Lee patted your back and gave you a supportive look. Yep. Your parents both nodded in sync to your reply, ready to talk. Yeah, I'm quite curious actually. I can leave you if you want to have things be private. I need moral support for this. I can do that. Lee shifted a little closer to you in support. You were glad to have her there with you, and made you feel a little stronger, somehow. You turned to face your parents again, preparing yourself for what they were about to tell you. Ma was the first to speak, her voice quivering with emotion. You were adopted as a baby, but 2 years after Elizabeth. We used a different organization at the time, and you were adopted within the US. Oof, so both of our parents are dead. Ouch. We're sorry to tell you, Airi. Your parents had also passed away and no other family member took you in, if there were any. Oof, man, so my parents are also dead. Yeah, supportive Lee. Moral support. That's why we wanted to wait until you asked. We didn't want to suddenly drop that in your lap. We wanted you to be prepared.
I'm sorry.
We're sorry, Airi. Lee gave you a reassuring squeeze on the arm to show she was there for you. Oh my god. Wait, I wanna see what happens if I start to cry. Let me save again. You start to cry. A lump that formed in your throat just as warm. Thank you for listening, Airi. If there's anything else you want to know, all you have to do is ask. We'll do our best to answer any questions you have.
Are you okay?
How are you feeling now? Are you going to be okay? Lee watched you closely, as though judging how exactly she should react to what was going on. I don't think I can. I mean, in the DLCs you can apparently date the other characters, but all of the options there are like male. Apparently the creator of this game is gonna make another game and stuff, so yeah. I don't know much about it though, so yeah. Let's go. You held back your tears. I'm not okay. We're sorry, Airi. Your mums looked just as sad as you felt. No one seemed to have any words after that. Yeah, I want to get out of the house. You turned on your heel without another word and headed towards the front door. Lee's footsteps echoed from behind, and you knew she was following you. Yeah, I said nothing. If she wanted to come, she could. Without knowing where you really wanted to go, you began to walk down the street, quietly dragging your feet. Lee's footsteps echoed on the pavement behind you as she caught up, falling into step beside you. You turned and kept going, unsure of what else to do. Being upset had blinded you to everything, and you wanted nothing more than to get away from it all. Eventually, you found yourself at the beach, your feet sinking into the soft sand while you looked out over the ocean. You took off your shoes and placed the sand over the water's edge, letting the cool ocean swirl around your bare feet. It was comforting being there, with the ocean breeze rustling your black hair and the smell of salty water filling your nostrils. Eventually, you took a seat on the ground, watching the sun as it dipped further and further towards the horizon, before it disappeared completely. Your cousin... Oh man, not another word I don't know of. Stalwartly? Your cousin stalwartly kept you company without trying to force you into speaking. The sky shifted from blue to pink to orange, and then the deep blue of night. A sudden shout drew your attention away from the sea, someone calling your name. Ah. Your head snapped to the source of the yells. At the edge of the beach, where the grass met the sand, was a silhouette in the darkness, but the person was still unmistakable to you. It was Cove. Oh hey, what was he doing here? His eyes settled on you ahead. Realizing you were in fact there, he rushed down the shore to where you sat. You could tell he was out of breath when he approached. You rose to meet him. Did something happen? No, not to me anyways. I wanted to know what happened to you. I went to your house to say hi, but your parents said you were gone, that you needed to get away.
What's wrong?
I mean, I had to think something was going on after something like that, so I came to find you. Lee gave him a smile, but put a supportive hand on your shoulder as you now had to try explaining this to someone. My parents are dead. My parents are dead. Well, imagine saying that. I have to say, this sounds so funny. Let's just You couldn't meet Cove's eyes. It was hard for you to even know where to begin. Yeah. Airi, there's definitely something going on. Do you not want to tell me? My parents, from before my mums, died when I was a baby. Mums didn't say how. Maybe they don't know. And there wasn't any other family I could live in, so that's why I got adopted. Oh, how sweet, I guess. Without having anything else to say, Without having to say anything else, Cove reached out and pulled you into a tight embrace, his familiar warmth enveloping you. Oh, thank God I pronounced it right. Thank goodness. Man, well that was sudden. I'm sorry, Airi. His words were whispered comfortably into your shoulder. You know, I couldn't do either. I could do any of these, and if this was a real life situation. No, I think I'd most definitely start to cry if something like this happened. You pressed your face into the crook of his neck, unable to stop the tears that the hold he had on you tightened. Can you explain everything to me? You nodded softly before taking in a heavy breath and launching into the story. Cove sat quietly and listened attentively, nodding every now and then or taking in a sharp inhale. It took a long time for you to relay the details. Dozens of stars were pinpointed in the sky as the night wore on. Silence settled between you as Cove sat quietly for a moment, contemplating everything you had said. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft. His voice was quiet, drifting through the night towards you. My lord, this is like a tongue twister for me. Don't forget to drink water, guys. Airi,
I'm so sorry.
I'm really sorry about what happened to your parents. So sorry. He stopped suddenly and took a deep, shaky breath, and you got the impression he was struggling with what was right to say. Yeah, let's go with that. I never knew them at all. They're strangers, even if they did have me. Airi, you're not doing anything wrong. You know that, right? I think that you can be as sad as you want, for as long as you need, or you can feel okay about it whenever you want to. He sighed and ran a hand through his hair as he looked out over the ocean.
It's okay.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, whatever you feel about it is how you feel about it. You don't have to force yourself to be different. I have no clue what to say to that. You couldn't offer more than that, but he didn't need more. Cove smiled at you a little, and you could tell he was trying to be comforting. And your mums definitely don't. It doesn't matter if you're not blood related, you're definitely family. I can see that, and I hope you can too. You felt the reassurance in his eyes. Your cousin tried not to interrupt your explanation or Cove's response to it. When the opportunity rose, she made it clear she shared the same sentiment. Damn, getting third wheeled here, huh? Hey. The sudden voice of your sister behind you made you jump. You saw her standing a little way away. She walked closer, and you didn't quite know what to do or what she was planning on saying.
So?
Would you mind going? What? Would you mind going? I want to talk to just Airi. You can come back. It's not like it's gonna be forever or anything. Cove seemed equal parts concerned and skeptical. Leaving now wasn't a concept that thrilled him. Lee wasn't exactly jumping to go, so she checked with you quietly. What do you think? Yeah.
Really?
Oh, then we're on the same page. She made a little move-along gesture with her hands, and it was settled. You waited until the two of you were alone before fixing her with an inquisitive look. Elizabeth folded her arms, looking you over. Did mums tell you about your parents too? I mean, I asked for it. Yeah, my birth parents also died. Wait, what was the other option? Oh no. Elizabeth broke eye contact after that. Sorry. Why did you want to talk to me? Elizabeth raised her eyebrows at the question, as though the answer should be obvious. I was worried about you. I was the one who brought it up, but I made you deal with whatever was left when I was gone. She sighed, glancing upwards for a moment before settling you once more. I wanted to ask you what happened without everyone breathing down our necks. I wouldn't say I'd be mad at her, I mean... She stuck her nose up a little at that, but her smile was soft. All of this, it upset me. She slipped back into a scowl. I'm sorry, Airi, it's a pretty depressing topic. Yeah, no, duh. Yeah. You have to be born in the US to become president. You have to? Do you actually have to? What? You had never heard of that dream of hers before. She noticed your bafflement and continued. I get I was never going to be president, but it just feels weird having stuff taken away, not even getting a chance at it. I don't like having to know that when I was born I was gonna have a completely different life. So different I can't even think what it looked like in my head. I could have spoken another language. I lived away from everything I have ever seen here, and someone else has had someone else as my sibling. And then my parents died, and I was adopted, and the life I got became a totally new thing forever. I can't go back to what it was, even if I wanted to. A heaviness settled between you and the person who became your sister. Yeah, it was a confusing feeling to have lived one way for so long as you can remember, but not having it be what was originally yours. Elizabeth watched you seriously. She was still trying to make sense of this to you and herself. Oh? I don't know why today was the day. Nothing came up to make me ask the question. It was just something I had in my head for a while. When it was just me and Mum's in the living room, I just kinda said it. I said it finally, and there you go. She lifted from one foot to another, relaxing her stance just a bit. She also spoke more gently. Learning about them and what happened doesn't change how I feel about our family, Airi. She smirked, fixing you with sharp eyes. Ah, there's Elizabeth, we all know. She's back. I'd already figured out a long time ago that our mums weren't our biological parents. That wasn't news. Just keep. Nothing about the family I was first born would have made me decide that this wasn't my family anymore. If you had hoped you'd be free of my big sisterly status, don't think you're so lucky. She bumped her shoulder against yours playfully. Her lips tilted at the corners.
You'll always be my little sister.
Aww, you'll always be my little sister. Aww, oh that's sweet. Yeah, hug. It took a few seconds, but she gave you a quick squeeze in return. Yeah, take the moment quietly. Chuckling, she seemed pleased with how the conversation had gone in the end. Ready to head back home? It's been a long day. You gave her a nod.
Come on.
Come on, you three, let's go. You walked home together in a comfortable silence down the well-worn street. The familiarity of it all felt nice. When you stepped through the door, you found your mum sitting quietly together at the kitchen table. Their heads snapped up and they got to their feet to meet you, Ma giving you a careful smile. We're glad to see you. Yeah, everything's fine now. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Really wonderful. Ma then came over and wrapped her arms around you and Elizabeth, giving you a tight hug. It didn't take long for Mum to join in, putting her arms around the both of you.
Love you.
We really couldn't have asked for better kiddos. We love you. More than we could ever say. Moms. Yeah, I love you too. Well, it was a nice moment. It was a nice moment, and you enjoyed it for as long as you could. They both pulled back eventually and grinned at the two of you, and you knew then that all you had each other. Or what? That you all had each other, and you always would. Oh my lord. Well now, since we're all here, how about we do something together as a family? That sounds like an excellent idea. We should have some fun before the night's over.
Totally.
I love the sound of that. Yeah, okay. Why not? You hid the smile that threatened to tilt your lips, knowing that Elizabeth must have been in a good mood if she hadn't even teased Cove for being a part of it. And no matter what she could have said about it, you wanted him to be here. The two of you had practically grown up together over the past 5 years. Who's got a suggestion? It should be something we can do in the house with everyone in the same room. We could just put on a movie. That would be wonderful. It's good to me.
Me too.
Me too, yeah. Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Alright.
I'll cook up some popcorn. The rest of you can pick a movie. Your mum headed off to the kitchen, and Ma turned to face the rest of you. What do we have in mind? Everyone else can decide. I'll watch anything. Anything but drama. We don't need any more of that today. Agreed. There was some chuckles at her joke, and you thought about it, what you would prefer to watch. Ha 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 ha. Sci-fi. Cool. Perfect. With the basics settled, Ma took to sorting through the DVD collection. You didn't notice that Elizabeth was sidling up to you until she was right next to you, arm to arm. Since there's always so much room on the couch, I say it should go to Airi and I. This is our day. Wait, I want to sit with you too. I'm small. You won't even notice I'm here. I'm there. Elizabeth raised a skeptical eyebrow. Not so sure about that. Ma stood back up with a DVD in her hand and a smirk on her face.
Please?
I want to sit with the cool kids too. Surely there's room for one more, right? It must be a tight fit, but we can make it work. You might need more seats. You could tell that Ma was teasing, and Elizabeth rolled her eyes at where this was going. She had expected an easy victory. I bet you want to sit there too, huh, Cove? Ma tapped Cove on the shoulder with the DVD case. He laughed awkwardly at her teasing. Well, now that's direct. Yeah, let's go with that. It may have been what Elizabeth was after, but you would have preferred it being left out of it. Ma came back with a big bowl of fresh popcorn, and you inhaled the smell of the hot salted snack. What's the skinny? We all want to sit with Elizabeth and Airi, but there's not enough room on the couch. Mom took that answer in stride and pursed her lips truthfully.
What a pickle.
That's definitely a problem. I suppose there's only one solution. Both Elizabeth and Airi will have to sit on the floor in front of the couch. That way there's spots behind them and on the floor at their sides.
Yes.
Oh yes, that's fair.
Rude.
What? No, the whole point was us getting the couch to ourselves.
Sorry.
Sorry, that's the cost of popularity. Elizabeth groaned and crossed her arms over her chest in annoyance. Fine, Airi, you're with me in the front. The rest of you can fend for yourselves. There was a mad dash as Mum and Lee raced for the couch behind you and Elizabeth. Ma put the DVD in the player before joining them. Cove took a seat at your other side of the floor, giving you a small smile. Everyone soon quieted down, and the only sounds to be heard were of hands scooping up popcorn and munching it down as the movie began. I don't really like popcorn though. Especially butter popcorn. I want salt popcorn though. Salted flavored popcorn. In that moment, you couldn't have been more pleased to be a part of the family you had. Hey, 2 left. Let me just save again. Dinner. Sunlight had shone through the window as you sat in your living room, your home phone pressed to your ear. Cove was on the other end. You listened silently as he kept talking, his words stilted. So, I was just wondering, do you want to come over to my house for dinner tonight? The question came out strangely, almost like he had rehearsed it a few times beforehand. Your eyes winded a little. You hadn't expected this to be the reason behind the call. Oh, just keep listening. Cove continued. His next words sounded rehearsed too, and tinged with nervousness. My mum and dad, they really want you to be there. If your parents don't have a problem with it, they asked me to ask you. You took a moment to think. Dinner at home would be quiet and uneventful today. If you really wanted to, you could go to Cove's instead. Cove spoke up again, breaking your thought train. His voice was softer than before. Huh? Also, I want you to be there too. Okay. Can you come over? I mean... I'll ask my mum first. I'll ask my mum's first. Okay, tell me when you can. He sounded noticeably relieved by your response. Was you coming over for a dinner today that serious? He spoke to you for a little while longer to explain what time to come over and other details, then hung up. Pardon. And that was that for now anyways. You called Ma right afterwards, and she picked up on the third ring. It wasn't a long conversation. When you asked to go to the Holden house for dinner, she was more than happy to give permission for it. No problems there. Ma wasn't the one to complain about you spending time with Cove. Cove got a quick call from you afterwards, so he knew for sure that you would attend the dinner. Then you said your goodbyes and went on with the afternoon. Soon enough, the sun dipped out of the sky and evening came. It was time for you to head to Cove's house. After letting Elizabeth know that you were leaving, she didn't look away from the TV, just grunted. You made the small journey across the street. You knocked a couple times on the heavy door to their condo. What is a condo? As you waited for an answer, you found yourself contemplating being a guest while both of Cove's parents were there. Let's go with this one. You wondered why they decided to invite you out of the blue. Maybe you'd find out later tonight. You didn't get too much time with your thoughts though. The door opened soon enough. Cove's mum Kyra stood in the frame, smiling warmly at you.
Come on.
Hey Airi, welcome home. Oh frick, why did I say welcome home? Hey Airi, welcome, please come on in. You opened the door wider and moved to make room. You stepped inside, allowing her to shut it behind you. Thanks so much for coming over. I know that it was kind of last second. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Of course, just make yourself at home. It's not my home, but I've been given permission to say that. Hey Airi, welcome to our humble abode. You jerked your head towards the sound of Mr. Holden's voice. He waved at you briefly from the kitchen, with his back turned to the large spoon in hand. With his back turned and a large spoon in hand. Well, my tongue is getting tongue-tied. Hope you're hungry, cause I'm whipping up a lot of tasty stuff. True to his word, you heard something sizzling on the stove. You closed your eyes and inhaled. It smelled spicy and savory. Oh, not spicy food. I can't handle spicy food that well. With Mr. Holden busy, Cove nowhere to be seen. It was just you and Kara. She gave you a wry smile. He sure is. While I've been barred from cooking the entire time, I'm staying here. Oh, well, I've been barred cooking from the entire time. While I've been barred from cooking the entire time, I'm staying here. Can you believe that? She nudged you with an elbow. Mr. Holden scoffed good-naturedly, then spoke from over his shoulder. You're on vacation, Kara. You needed to set that already. She yelled back, amused obvious on her face and in her tone. People still cook when they're on vacation. Everyone's gotta eat. It's not like I'm some celebrity who can go out for every meal or hire a private chef.
Sorry.
Well, in this house you're a VIP. Kara smiled and shook her head silently, then turned to face you once more.
Well,
Sorry about that, Airi. Here I was trying to strike up a conversation with you, and Cliff just had to butt in. I don't butt in. She eyed him, chuckling in disbelief. He wasn't exactly disapproving her point with that. Kara leaned over to whisper to you. It's okay, he likes to be included, but since Clifford insisted on cooking all by himself, he'll have to wait. The two of us can chat. We'll just say first. Again. Okay. Her next question continued to be said in a hushed tone, just to be safe. So, how you doing? Good. Kara didn't seem too convinced by her awkward phrasing, but she nodded anyway. She opened her mouth to say something more, but some lightly pounding footsteps caught your attention. You checked to see Cove emerge from the hall a few moments later. He might have heard all the commotion and left his room to see what was going on. He quickly took stock of the situation. Airi, hey, thanks for being here. Yeah, no problem. There was nothing unusual about the words in his greeting, but you could tell something was wrong from the way he looked like he wanted to be anywhere but there. Yeah, must be pretty awkward. Hi, Cove. Hi, Cove. You doing okay? Yeah, I'm fine. He didn't sound convincing at all. You narrowed your eyes suspiciously, but didn't call him out on it. If you could talk to him alone tonight, maybe you could ask him what's going on then. It was then you glanced away from Cove that you spotted his parents watching the two of you interact. Cove noticed their stares too, meeting them with narrowed eyes. Are we having dinner now? Not yet, bud, I'm still cooking. Alright, I'm gonna go back to my room. As he turned to leave, he bent his head to the side to face you. You come in? The question was quiet, but you heard it clearly. You smiled, pleased that he asked, and nodded in the affirmative. Cove turned fully and made his way down the hall. Have fun, you two. We'll call you when food's ready to go. With that, you followed after Cove. The two of you made your way down the hall. Yeah, let's go with that. Cove got to the door first, opening it and stepping inside. You joined him. There was a mat on the floor in front of the door. As you stepped over the threshold into his room, you felt the crunch of sand beneath your feet. Dude! Bro! Sand! You need to vacuum your room more, mate. You glanced down. Sand was clustered around the entrance. You even spotted smaller amounts of it dusting the rest of the room's floor. Dude, you might want to vacuum your floor. Though you hadn't anticipated it, you weren't surprised at the sight. Of course, Beach Boy Cove Holden would get his room all sandy. Not surprising. Yeah, I'm not surprised by that too. So, this is my room. Cove was a bit shy as he said so, fidgeting with the hem of his shirt, using one hand and vaguely gesturing to the space with the other. There's stuff you can sit on if you want. You looked over at the desk chair as an option. When you turned back, Cove was already sitting on the edge of his large bed. Well, no, I actually. You try.
Not really.
No, but it could be cool if I could. It'd be cool if I could though, bro. You couldn't help but recalling a long time ago, Cove explaining his childhood dream home would be something located right on the shore of a beach. Maybe that idle thought still held an appeal to him. It made you smile to think about it. Let's sit on the chair. There was a desk chair in the room for a reason after all. You walked over and rolled it out, taking a seat on it. It was stiff against your butt and creaked each time you shifted. He definitely used his bed space more than this. Well, too late to complain now, you just have to deal with it. I'm not picky with seats. With a silence growing, your gaze began to drift. You stared at the bright fish swimming in the tank. There was a bunch of them, floating to and fro in the open space. They stood out starkly against the green aquarium plants. How long have you had those fish?
Yes.
My dad brought them to me not very long after I moved here. I guess it's been years now. Wow, that's a long time indeed. You peered carefully into the tank. The fish looked to be doing well. He must take good care of them. I had pet fish, but then they all died. I have no clue why. I don't know why to this day. Maybe we fed them too much, who knows. Most of them were small, but there was one especially big one. What are their names? I don't name them. Well, not really. You lifted an eyebrow at that. You continued to explain sheepishly. Oh my lord. Sheepishly. Good lord. Mostly, I just call them things based on what they look like. Squirt for a short, small one. Tangerine for a really orange one. That sort of thing. That sounds like how I name my soft toys. I had a lot of fish. I'm not that good at coming up with names now. I can relate to this. I name my toys terribly. I have a panda plushie, but I name him Panda. Yeah, that's relatable. You didn't have any pets, but you always had trouble naming your stuffed animal. See? Like I said. That's exactly. You stuffed your stuffed animals or whatever else. It was such a hard choice. Oh, a couple of them have other types of names. He pointed a small orange-ish red fish. It was minding its own business, away from the others. My dad named her Dreamcatcher. Oh, like the K-pop band? And the other one's Mark. Oh, like from NCT. JK. Mum came up with that one. Cove smiled to himself, his eyes reflecting the glow from the tank. You let other people name your fish?
It's nice.
Yeah, that's nice. He then turned to you, tilting his head to the side. There was a considering look on his face. Do you want to name one? Oh, I do. Yes, please. Can I? His smile grew a little at your interest. Sure. There's a few who don't have names right now. The newer ones. You can pick which one you want to name. He pointed each of the recent acquisitions out to you. The first one was the smallest fish in the tank. It was completely orange and zipped all over the place, running laps around the others. Pardon once again. Why am I burping so much right now? The second was slightly bigger and red. Its tail was dotted with black spots which almost resembled freckles. True, but yeah, that is true. Cove the K-pop fan. The K. Wait, what year is that? Oh wait. The last fish was the biggest one. Its multicolored scales rippled under the bright light of the tank as it slowly made its way across the vast expanse. You went with Eeny Meeny. Why do I keep using the E? It's not gonna medium. Cove only nodded at your answer, waiting on you to decide on a suitable name. You watched the fish you choose closely. As you did, a name eventually came to you. Typo my own answer. Bubbles, no. I don't know what to name. I want to name it Shinji for some reason. What should I name it? Wait, what was the second fish? I'm gonna read the second fish's description. Log. Wait, what was the first fish? Wait. Hold up. I'm gonna go back. Let me go back. Smallest fish. I know what to name it. It's the smaller fish. It's all orange and it zips around so fast. I know what to name it. Hinata. That's a sure. Get in the robot fishing. Sure. Oh no, the name's been okay. There's a limit to the name. I'm gonna name you Hinata. There. Hinata. That's good enough. Oh wait, why don't I go to log? I want us to go to save. Get in the robot fishy. The fish proceeds to have crew fishy's thesis. Alright, it's Hinata. Hey! Yeah, now my favorite character from Haikyuu's now. Hey! With that, his attention moves from you to the tank. He peered fondly at its inhabitants. Krill's fishy thesis. Oh, that's hilarious. You smiled proudly at Hinata as it swam through the tendrils of the plants, disappearing then reappearing soon after. See, it suits it. It's orange and it moves really fast. I'm so proud of my decision to name it Hinata. Oh, jeez. You know, I'm not allowed to have pets in my house, not even fish. I can relate to that. I can relate to this too. The corners of Cove's lips turned down at that. That doesn't sound fair. It's not like fish would make a mess of your house or anything. You just gotta take care of the tank and feed them and they'll be okay. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. The description for the smallest fish was like, oh yeah, the fish is tiny and it's all orange and it swims around really fast, and I was like, oh, Hinata. That suits Hinata. I can imagine Hinata just zipping around the court, doing miscellaneous things with his other teammates. You gotta take care of their tank and feed them and they'll be okay. I don't mind it too much. You have to do so much for a pet. It's a lot of work and responsibility. My mums take it super seriously, and that's why they don't want to just get one. That's true. Your current conversation brought to mind a memory from years ago. You launched into it without any warning, earning a brief confused look from Cove. Oh my lord, why am I burping so much today? I don't understand. One time, Elizabeth came back from playing at the beach and just shut herself in her room. She only came down for food and then she ran back upstairs straight after. It was kind of weird. My mums didn't think much of it at first though. That is true. But then that night, Ma went to her room and said goodnight and started screaming. Mum and I ran over to see what happened. Lizzie had this big lizard in her arm. Cove's eyebrows rose to that as he leaned forward in interest. A lizard? Where did that come from? Elizabeth said she saw it half buried in the sand and didn't know what it was. Then she pulled it out and got the answer. She thought so. She brought it home. Man, Elizabeth, you're very daring. She had the lizard in her room for most of the day because she wanted to keep it. Mum and Ma were not happy. They worried about putting it out during night, but she was going to have to let it go in the morning. Lizzie was really upset. She did bring it back to the beach eventually, but she wouldn't talk to anyone for days. When she did get over it, it was almost like it never happened. You laughed, thinking back to that time. Elizabeth had always been stubborn, but when she was younger, she forgot grudges quickly. Now it wasn't so easy. Cove had been quiet for most part of the story, apart from the reveal of the lizard. He had a thoughtful look on his face. I can't even imagine what it's like to have a sibling. You gave serious thought to his statement before you told him. Yeah. It's fun to have her there when she wants to be there, but now Elizabeth barely feels like hanging out with me. Cove pursed his lips at the words, considering them quietly for a while.
Cool.
That's interesting. I think your family's cool. He didn't have much else to say, though while on the topic of your family, you considered your relationship with your mums too. Yeah. You couldn't even consider having another options. You couldn't have better parents. Well, say what you want about them, but at least your mums never tried to pay someone to be your friend. Oh yeah, his dad literally paid me to be his friend. Cove's dad literally paid me $20 to be his friend. It was hilarious. I never told him that though. It'd be too sudden. Another hydration check. The thought prompted you to look over at Cove. He probably still didn't know what happened. You doubt that Mr. Holden mentioned it, and you never had. You wondered if you should tell him. It was a long time ago, but you were keeping a secret from Cove. Yeah, let's not tell him. I feel bad if I tell him now. What if he got really upset? Thinking about his possible reaction made you nervous. Time passed, but you didn't really notice. The two of you were busy, making plans for the rest of the summer and chatting about your respective days. Eventually, you heard a muffled holler from a different part of the house. You and Cove raised your heads in unison.
Oh.
It's time for dinner. Cove watched the firmly shut door had been not locked behind for most of the night, but he didn't make a move to get up from the bed. You couldn't see his face, so you didn't know what expression he was wearing. I'm glad you came. Cove peeked back at you from the side. It's been awkward. I get that. It's been hard on you, huh? You felt sympathetic towards him. You didn't know what he was going through, but you cared about him. Cove said nothing else and remained sat where he was. Now would be a good time as any to ask him why his parents so suddenly wanted you to come over. Is there a reason why? It hasn't been awkward just for me. Sometimes it gets like this, when no one else is around, but now you're here. Huh, you haven't considered that. It sort of made sense in a way. There was another shout from the outside, too muffled to actually know the words, but you could hardly imagine what they were. Let's go. Cove finally got up, lumbering away with his shoulders sagged. You followed after him. Man, he's not looking forward to that dinner, huh? Today, together the two of you made your way back to the living room. As you expected, Cove's parents were politely waiting for you at the kitchen table beside the windows overlooking the back of the house. Food had been prepared and set. Mr. Holden beamed at you as you and Cove took your places. I hope everyone's hungry. I cooked up a feast. Wait, which one, Cove or like his dad? I'm assuming Cove, but yeah, he always does look kind of sad.
Yeah.
I know I am. Yeah. Cove's mumbled response wasn't nearly as upbeat as theirs. His parents didn't notice, or they pretended not to. Mr. Holden instead looked at you grinning.
Thanks.
Let's all just take a moment to thank our special guests for being with us here tonight. I'm so glad you were able to make it, Airi, and on such short notice too. Yeah, let's thank them. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Yes, thank you, thank you.
Alright.
Well, that's it. Everyone, please dig in. You can help yourselves with the food. Upon his encouragement, you looked over the meal spread out in front of you. There was a large garden salad in the center, surrounded by a variety of Mexican dishes. There were a lot of sides and optional sauces to add. Yeah, I can work with this. You didn't mind Mexican food. Mom loved it, and you ate it as a family often. In a way, it made your first dinner at the Holden house feel a bit more normal. Utensils and plates scraped and clinked together as the group began filling their plates. Cliff, could you pass the salsa verde? Verde? Of course.
Thanks.
Thank you. Let me just say, you really outdid yourself. You really outdid yourself tonight. I'm so jealous. Jealous of what? Your cookie's nothing to sneeze at, Kyra. Cove's parents made small talk, filling the silence with what seemed to be barely any effort. You chimed in as well. Did it take you a long time to cook all this, Mr. Holden? Oh, not at all. Sure, this is more than I usually make for me and Cove, but I enjoyed every second of it.
Aha.
Might have gone faster if you had some help though. Oh man. They're being loud again. Cove's mum grumbled, but it was light-hearted. Mr. Holden chuckled and shook his head. Not this again. I make the rules here, and I say guests don't cook. Even when they're staying for literal weeks.
Come on.
Even then, brief silences interspersed the small talk. You piled up some food on your plate, waiting for your turn if someone was serving themselves a dish that you had your eye on. Once the food had been divided and things settled down, Cove's parents started talking again. Now then. You sat up in your seat when you noticed they were both looking at you.
How's it going?
How's everything been over there at your house? Are your mums well? You've been keeping busy this summer, or maybe you're just trying to take it easy during the break. You hadn't expected so many questions, and all at once. Still, what else was there to talk about apart from the summer was going? Let's go with this one. Mr. Holden's brows raised when you answered with that. You sure are keeping yourself busy. I could learn a thing or two from you. Mums are fine. Just kind of busy with work and stuff. That's nice. Doing the fine part. Not the busy with work part, obviously. Yeah, that's all. Can someone say info overboard? I already can't keep up with everything you're throwing out. Mr. Holden winced at the gentle reprimand, as if just realizing how rapid fire his questions had been. Yeah, no offense. Sorry about that, Airi. Guess it was a lot to take in at once, huh? Did you know, Cliff? Airi is really into social. No, I'm not. I'm really not into socializing. What answer thought I? What made you think I was into socializing? I'm bad at socializing. Mr. Holden's face lit up as he stopped eating so he could lean forward. his arms braced against the table.
Nice work.
Oh, that's right, very cool. Oh, it's not a big thing. Oh, don't downplay your interests like that. What do you mean by socializing? Like, hold up. I don't get what you mean by socializing. Oh well. Kara's right. If you enjoy it, then it's definitely a big thing. Thanks. Ko's parents were definitely the encouraging type, but you could already tell that much that much about them. There was a lull in conversation as everyone focused their attention on their respective plates. You noted for the first time that Ko's parents were the ones guiding the conversation. You wondered if you should break the silence this time. Oh, I want to save and see what would happen. Or should I just keep quiet? Nah, I think I should just keep quiet. Mr. Holden was the one who spoke, glancing at his son before turning to you with an easy grin. Speaking of hobbies, Cove has been hitting the books hard. He keeps telling me all kinds of things I've never heard of. Yeah, I'd already known that since Cove is so open with you, but it was interesting to hear his parents' perspective on it. Cove looked uncomfortable by the conversation shifting to become about him. He sunk lower in his seat. Oh. The rest of dinner continued just like that, with light conversation as you ate your meals. Eventually, all the dishes on the kitchen table were pretty much gone. Kara sat down her fork and rested her arms at her sides, letting loose a satisfied sigh. Her plate was completely empty.
Thanks.
That was delish. Thank you for your cutlery creations, Cliff. Mr. Holden was like a flower, soaking up the rays of the sun. He beamed, flattered by the praise. Good lord, my tongue is getting tongue-tied again. Hold up. I'd go with this one. Wasn't good to completely stuff yourself full of food, so you held yourself back. Cove successfully kept his presence to a minimum for the full meal. He was slumped over, even now toying with his silverware. Man, he really doesn't want to be in this situation. His parents practically only talked to you. Most attempts to entice him to join the conversation failed. Oof. Then again, Cove didn't tend to talk a lot unless he happened to be in the mood for it, so you weren't surprised things ended up this way. You didn't get much time to contemplate Cove's situation because your attention was taken by Mr. Holden pointedly clearing his voice. Not to sound like a broken record, but thanks for coming, Airi. I'm glad we finally got the chance to have you over for a real dinner.
What?
Wait, did I hear that right? This is the first time Airi has ever had dinner here? Why in the world haven't you invited her sooner? Cove was always the one going over to Airi's house until now. I mean, how was I supposed to reject the generous offers of the Briggs family to host my kid? Kara shook her head, but the amused smile she was sporting told you that she wasn't actually mad. This guy, honestly. The three of you looked at Cove in unison, his small sound being more than enough to get the focus on him after his silence, but now he'd stopped fiddling with his fork.
I mean...
Would it be alright for Airi to stay over, like, for the night? He shot you a shy glance then, smiling a little. If you call with that. Mr. Holden stiffened. He sat up straighter, his eyes darting back and forth between you and Cove. His mouth opened, but not a peep came out. You never seen Cove's dad say no to him, but this was different than the usual request. It wasn't so simple, and Mr. Holden was lost. Then Cove's mum reached out and took a hold of his shirt collar. She pulled him closer. She glanced at you before leaning in and bringing a hand up in front of their faces. The two adults whispered seriously to each other. Cove's eyes opened wider. He leaned forward as if that would help him overhear his parents' conversation. Mr. Holden kept gesturing his hands while Kyra made sure he didn't get too far away with all his movements. Every now and then, both of them would watch you and Cove out of the corner of their eyes. It didn't seem like they were fighting to you. They looked more like some kind of tiny sports team having a private huddle. After a bit, they broke the powwow? 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 Yeah, they kinda do. They kinda do, actually. Not gonna lie. You snuck a look at Cove. He stared at them expectantly. You were eager to hear their verdict too. We, Kyra and I, think that should be fine, but... He lifted a finger dramatically, his brows raising as he met Cove's gaze and then your own. We'll have to talk with Airi's parents and make sure they'd be comfortable with it. If they are, we can arrange for a sleepover to happen on a different night when everyone is more prepared. If Airi's folks don't like the idea, there's nothing we can do. He finished the mini speech with a wide shrug using his full arms. He also checked out Kyra from the corner of his eyes and gave her a crooked smile. She nodded approvingly and grinned back. You thought you saw her give him a thumbs up, but her hand was partially blocked by the table. They looked so pleased with themselves over the answer, but they just passed the actual decision on whether it was alright or not to someone. Blah blah blah. It was alright or not to someone else, namely your parents. If this was a sports game, they would have punted the ball away. I don't understand what that means, but I'm assuming that's like a baseball term or something. Cove hung his head deflated. He had been hoping you could stay over today, but not some hypothetical time in the future. Yeah, I'll give a pat. You didn't say a word. Instead, you reached over and gave him an understanding pat on the back. Though he still appeared upset, the corner of his lips lifted a little in appreciation of your comfort. With that, the dinner finally came to an end. He certainly did. He certainly did learn to be a drama queen from his dad. I can see that. Mr. Holden stood up from the table and began collecting empty plates. Cove was asked to help out, which he did with little fuss. Kyra tried to lend a hand as well, however Mr. Holden didn't let her. It seemed she was barred from cleaning as well as cooking. Oof. You weren't allowed to chip in either, since you were there as the declared guest of honor. Pardon. Although the meal was over, the night wasn't. It looked like you weren't going home just yet after all. You were asked to wait on the couch. While Cove and his dad were cleaning up the messes, Kyra disappeared down the hall after shooting you a wink. It was a bit strange sitting by yourself while everyone else had something to do. Luckily, you weren't alone for too long. After a couple of minutes, Cove's mum returned with a deck of cards in hand. She strolled into the room confidently while shuffling. So, who's up for rounds? Cove and his dad looked over their shoulder at the same question. They were mutually intrigued by the cards in her hands. She beamed at her expressions and stepped further into the living room. Ignoring the couches, she sat cross-legged on the floor by the coffee table. She turned to you and gestured at the space beside her, smiling invitingly. You accepted and followed her lead. The living room carpet was soft, though the hardwood floor underneath could definitely still be felt. Kyra did an overhand shuffle while she waited for others to finish their tasks. The smile had yet to leave her lips.
Great.
This is going to be good. Yeah, let's go with that. Cove's mum was funny, upbeat, and easygoing. You leaned closer to watch her expertly shuffle the cards. It didn't take much longer for Cove and his dad to wrap things up enough to call it good. Cove's dad appeared first, followed closely behind by Cove. Mr. Holden rubbed his hands together in anticipation. Alright, I'm ready. As he took a seat across from you on the floor, you noticed that Cove hadn't joined him. He went straight down to the hall instead. Without even a word, you stared on, confused as he disappeared through his bedroom door. Cove's parents didn't look concerned at the stunt. Kyra nonchalantly split the deck of cards into two and riffled the halves together while offering an explanation of sorts. Cove doesn't keep his wallet with him when he's at home. He puts it away. What? Cove quickly returned to the living room, a black wallet in his hand. He took a place at the foot of the table with the rest of you. You blinked as Cove unzipped his wallet. You all use real money on card games with family? Yeah, I'm shocked. Wow. People do that? Do families actually do that? Do actual families do that? I don't know. While you sat there, your hands idle in your lap, the three shot looks at one another and sized each other up.
Yeah.
That's right, $5 per round per person. Is there? That's probably my mom. My room's like next to the bathroom, and like the sink gets really loud if you like turn the water to full and stuff. If you turn it on to full, so yeah. So yeah, that explains the weird washy noise, I guess. That's right, $5 per round per person. Winner takes all. Not the sound again. Go big or go home. Oh my lord. Oh, and you're planning on kicking Airi to the curb, or do you intend on donating to the guest of honor's pot, Mr. High Roller? Mr. Holden narrowed his eyes and leaned back against the side of the couch, completely at ease.
No worries.
If Airi wants to play, I'll fund her way in. Don't worry about that. He rested an arm across the top of a knee that he propped up. Cove's dad was acting slick in a way you'd never seen before. Ignore it. You watched Cove's mum shuffled instead, in awe of the way the cards fluttered and snapped together. Airi's right, my friend. If she's playing, I can give her money for the round. Mr. Holden wasn't intimidated by Cove's skull. He only grinned, chuckling.
Good kid.
Alright, bud, I concede to your might of personality. Cove still looked a little sour, but he didn't protest more after getting his way. Well, you've got your ticket. Interested in throwing in? You glanced around. This seemed like serious business. In response to your consternation? Oh wow, that was weird. I don't know what that means. Consternation. Kara softened her competitive smile. Oh, okay. Don't worry too much. We'll probably just do some rounds of Go Fish tonight. No biggie.
Do you mind?
What do you think? I wouldn't mind. I mean, Go Fish is pretty fun actually. I shall join in a game of goldfish. Go Fish, not goldfish. I'd love to play. Mr. Holden gave you a big thumbs up while Cove nodded firmly back. Firmly? Oh, no, blah blah blah. Yeah, let's go with look. Go with the gacha, guys. Card games were mostly about chance after all. Fantastic. We'll play for however long everyone wants to keep going, or until people start running out of cash but are still refusing to quit while they're behind. Speaking for yourself, I see. With a laugh, Kyra nudged you using an elbow, then motioned towards the other two with her chin. Don't be fooled by their soft faces. These boys are sharks. Oh. In reaction to her words, Mr. Holden smirked and Cove's eyebrows became more angled. Kyra's phrasing made you think back to when you were young, specifically of Mr. Holden's favorite shark pants that he used to wear all the time. Wow, that's a... Perhaps they had been a fit for him in ways you didn't know of. You could feel tension in the air. Cove and his parents glued their eyes to one another and placed $5 in an empty space in front of them. Cove dropped an extra one for you, giving you a tiny smile after he did. Once he was done, Kyra began dealing out cards to everybody. It was time to begin. It's time to duel. Insert that meme, that Kaiba meme from Yu-Gi-Oh in there. The first round came and went quickly with the group getting into the groove of things. You won right away, which meant you had money to keep playing the second round. You're a natural. Nicely done. You better keep those wits about you for the next round though. As the night went on, so did the games. Mr. Holden would jokingly shake his fist whenever someone other than him got a pair. Kyra acted as a news anchor, reporting on every move everyone made by speaking into her curled fists. Aw, that's kinda cute. Cove was still a few words, but now it was because he was focused on the game instead of being overcome with awkwardness. Most of the time you even spotted a smile on his lips. Imagine if Go Fish was an anime. Imagine if there was a sports anime about Go Fish. That'd be kinda dumb though, but oh well. You didn't win many of the games, but the others always chipped in for you. In fact, it was always a bit of a fight over who got to be your backer. It became clear that where the money went in the moment didn't really matter. They ended up giving it back to one another in other ways, and not just through more rounds of cards. You sat back looking over the scene. A tiny smile grew on your face. Cove's pet family was pretty cool, you thought. Yeah, I agree, they're actually pretty cool. You were glad you got this chance to come over to spend time with the three of them. Hey, and scene end, let's just save once again. The road trip. Even though you were awake, the sun had barely peeked its head above the horizon, and the sky above was still dark, though lightening by the minute. Usually you wouldn't be up so early, especially during summer vacation, but today was different, because we're going on a camping trip, guys. Today, instead of the lazy days you were used to, everything around you was a flurry of activity. Pardon, why am I... Gosh. As both of your family and Cove's parents... Oh, and Cove's... were... What? And Cove's... Oh, jeez. Today, instead of the lazy days you were used to, everything around you was a flurry of activity as both of your family and Coves prepared for what laid ahead. Because parked in the street just outside your house was a massive RV camper, so big you couldn't even see Cove's house behind it. His parents had rented the RV for a few days to take him on a short road trip to see Redwood National Park. You glanced at Cove, who was standing nearby, taking in the scene in front of him. Hold up. Hydration check, everyone. So it seemed in prospect of the trip had to be a mixed bag for him. It was only 3 days, so it seemed like he was dealing with it as best as he could. Especially now that you and your family were joining them. You weren't sure how exactly it happened. You knew your parents and Cove spoke to each other often, and somewhere along the way plans were made after Cliff offered to share the space. The parents all thought it was a fantastic idea. You had already gotten a good look inside with helping to load everything in, and you had to admit that while it was a really big car, fitting that many people inside was going to be snug.
Let's go.
Move it or lose it, kiddo. Mom bustled past with a cooler in one hand. Oh, cooler? Chili bin. Moved past with a cooler in one hand and a large bottle of water under the other. She was upbeat for this early in the morning. Ma, however, seemed to be on the other side of the wavelength. She followed behind her wife, dragging her feet on every step. I'm going to need a whole jug of coffee once we hit the road. I want to do this. He just tried to keep up and took in some deep breaths. The air was still a little damp from the dew, but you didn't mind. And then at the end of the chain came your sister. She had a bone to pick before the trip officially started. Her rattling of critiques added some level of normalcy to everything new going on. I don't get why I can't sleep in the bed tonight. Airi is the youngest, and I'll never fall asleep in that loft. Wait. If we're trying to make things fair on everyone, if you want to play the older card, you should be offering to take lofts on the loft both nights. It's important for big siblings to make sacrifices for the younger ones. Man, that's a lot of responsible. How responsible. Elizabeth huffed, not happy with that answer in the slightest, and folded her arms, leaning back against the side of the RV. The trip plans had been nailed down prior. Hold on, let me try to just do something for a moment. The trip plans had been nailed down prior, the sleeping arrangements included. Elizabeth still held on her objections with them. There was a main area of the RV with a couch, loft, and some floor space. At the end of the car was a room with a large bed. Your mums were sharing the bed. Kyra was on the couch, and father and son intended to sleep on the floor. That is very... What an arrangement. The adults determined you and Elizabeth would switch between the small loft above the driver's seat, sharing the bed with mums. Yeah, I'm fine with it. As long as you had a place to rest your head of some description, it didn't bother you. Alright, you lot, does everyone have everything they need? We're heading out in 5 minutes. Now's the time to double check. You don't want to forget something important. At the word, Elizabeth yelped and dashed into the house, her bedhead hair bouncing behind her as she went. Ma came over and gave you a smile, resting her hands on her hips. How about you, Airi? Do you have all your clothes packed? Toiletries, deodorant, floss, anything else you can think of? Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I feel like I'm forgetting something, but I can't remember what. Ma chuckled and gave you a squeeze on the shoulder. I get that on trips too, so I've learned to pack extra in case I or anyone else forgets. With the amount of supplies we've stuffed in the RV, I think we'll be okay. It's only a few days after all. Thanks, Ma. With a few minutes left to spare before leaving, You mentally went over to what you had packed for the trip. Clothes, a pillow, and blanket. Usual day-to-day gear for most people. Let me just save one more time. You also had more personal things, such as you had to be prepared in case you saw something to sketch at the park, or if you had to write anything down, or if you needed to pass the time just doodling. What else? Yes. Without fail, it always made you feel more comfortable whenever you went somewhere new. It was like taking a little piece of home away with you. I still do that from time to time. And with so much time going to be spent driving in a car, you wanted to make sure you'd be able to have some music to put on. And yes, a couple things to read. You had packed one of your old favorites and a new one you'd never tried before. You knew you'd have plenty of time for them both for such a long drive. And that's everything. Hey, let me take that for you, Airi. Oh, what? Hey, let me take that for you, Airi. I'll stow it in the RV. There's a few spots left to fill. You let Kyra take your bag and gave her a grateful smile. With nothing left to do, you watched the others getting ready for the trip. Kyra and Cliff seemed to have the most energy of anyone. They were finishing packing the suitcases away while your mums had gone to lock up the house. They had high-fived whenever another one got crammed into the storage compartments of the vehicle. Even though your own parents were more low-key than Cove's, you could tell they were both excited for the trip. It had been a while since your family had been away anywhere together. Elizabeth skipped towards the RV, a bag slung over her shoulder, and you were surprised to see she seemed more optimistic about the whole ordeal now. Usually she wasn't one to exit the confines of her room unless it was for TV or food, or to leave her family behind to be with friends. You would have thought 3 whole days packed in an RV with 6 others would be too much for her, but it was a nice surprise. You supposed any vacation was better than no vacation in her mind. Cove had been pretty quiet so far. More than anything, seemed to be overwhelmed by the situation. Save again. I'm curious. You've never stayed overnight in one before, and wanted to know what it'd be like. Soon the miscellaneous remaining tasks had all been wrapped up. Everyone piled into the RV. It was officially time for the trip to start. Man, that's a pretty big camper van. Look at all that floor space. And it did. Cliff took the first shift driving. He cautiously navigated the massive car out of the narrow neighborhood streets. It was tough to go for the first part of the journey. Your mums and Kyra were all huddled at the front, trying to get a view of how much space they had on each side. There was a sense of relief when the first long leg of the trip was hit, and the RV would only need to go down one stretch of highway for miles. The mum group cleared out of the driver's seat, leaving Cove's dad to it, taking more comfortable seats around the main cabin. You felt like you could finally relax too. Time slipped by as morning faded away. Before you realized it, the engine of the RV came to a stop, but only halted for a few moments as Cliff climbed out of the driver's seat and Mum took over. Mum was sitting shotgun, giving Mum a quick tutorial on the controls as it was her first time driving anything this large. Cliff groaned as he headed towards the rest of you, stretching his arms above his head and loosening up his muscles. We're making good progress. Great, maybe you should take a nap and head back for a while. That was a long haul you just did, and I know you're on less sleep than usual. Cliff waved a hand, that trademark grin of his slipping into place.
Nah.
I don't need sleep. I still got a few miles in this tank. Sleep was for the weak. He flexed an arm, showing off his muscles to drive the point about how resilient he was. He was home. Home? He was home, and Kyra rolled her eyes in amusement. Dad, everybody has to sleep. Cove groaned through the tough guy. Oh god. Pardon. Cove groaned through the tough guy act, though Cliff simply chuckled and ruffled his son's hair.
So?
Are you going to be driving again anytime soon, Mr. Holden? I want to know so I can prepare. Did anyone pack some rope? I might need it. There's no seatbelts up here. Elizabeth called down from where she was lounging in the loft above the driving compartment. So we're staying up there? Ooh. She was laying on her back, her hair falling over the side and swinging around the RV as the RV started up again and took off down the road. Hold up, wait. A bag of potato chips was balanced on Elizabeth's stomach as she tossed a couple in her mouth right as Cliff held a hand to his chest, pretending to be offended by the remark. Kyra laughed lightheartedly.
Don't worry about that.
Let me just have another sip of water. Oh my god, I'm nearly out of water. Ugh. Luckily for all of us, we have enough adults to cover the shifts today. You won't be driving again until tomorrow. Let's stay quiet. You didn't have anything to add to the conversation, but it was pretty funny all the same. Mum then shuddered back in her seat to join the conversation, as a playful smile tilting her lips. What I'm more worried about is this old monster getting us back there and... What I'm more worried about is this old monster getting us there and back again before falling apart. It looks as though it was built in the early 90s. It must be older than some of the occupants. That's just the aesthetic of the decor. It's not that old, I think. Did you ask what year the model was before you rented it? Kyra wrinkled her nose in thought.
Hey!
Yes, I did. I just can't remember what the answer was. Cliff chuckled at her while the rest of you let out a collective sigh. The RV lurched a little as it picked up speed, and you held onto the ladder to the loft to keep your balance. You felt something graze the top of your head before weight settled on your black hair. When you tilted your chin up carefully to look, you heard the rustling of the bag of chips and realized Elizabeth had rested the end of it on your head. She gestured to the opening, silently offering to share her snack. Yeah, take a handful. Reaching up, you scoop up some chips. After that, the weight of the packet left your scalp. You happily munched away as the conversation continued on, and you got closer and closer to your destination. The day flew by with the group of you chatting, playing games and passing the time together, before finally arriving at the park and sitting up for the night. Oh, your back doesn't hurt anymore? Not? Congrats. That's good, that's good. That's good. Glad to know that your back got better. Ma was closing the windows while everyone got ready for bed, saying goodnight to the others as she made her way to the back room. You had all had dinner today while still driving, and some hours after had arrived at your destination and found a spot in the park for the rest of your stay. Giving a look across the front of the RV, you noticed almost everyone there was already dozing off where they were, and Cove, having completely fallen asleep, curled up in the passenger seat. He must have done so while Kyra was driving the last leg, and they had decided not to disturb him. Kyra herself was the only one up there who was still awake, flipping through a magazine next to a portable light from her spot on the couch. It seemed Mr. Holden needed to sleep despite his claims. You followed your mums into the back room and closed the door behind you before crawling into bed between them. It was a queen-sized bed, so there was enough space for the three of you together without too much squishing.
Good night.
Get a good rest, Airi. We've got a big day ahead of us tomorrow.
That's fantastic.
I'm looking forward to the bushwalk in the morning. It's been a long time since I was out in nature like this. There will be plenty of us to see. You stayed awake for a little while longer, while your mums whispered about the park and forests in general. With the sound of their voices in the background, you eventually nodded off to sleep. The next morning, you were bright and early, preparing for the day ahead. Hold up, let me just switch on the heater again. There we go. I have slept well. You fell asleep before you knew it and woke up rested. Ma whined a bit about the firmness of the mattress, but Mum had always encouraged her to enjoy the trip while she could. While looking for a spot to get ready, you had some trouble finding a space of your own, as the others were doing the same thing. Cove was perched on top of the counter, brushing his hair and tucking up his legs every time someone wanted to move past. The parents were checking, double checking, and triple checking that you had everything to the point where you had stopped listening to them altogether. You knew you wouldn't be returning to the RV at all that day, but by the look of the backpacks that were packed up and ready to go, you doubted anything was missing from them. It didn't take much longer until you all exited the RV in a bustle and headed into the Redwood National Park.
Wow.
I know, right? Lot of big trees. Cove had his head tilted up towards the canopy of trees, his eyes wide as he took in the massive trunks on either side of you. You knew that the redwood trees were considered to be the tallest trees on Earth, but you weren't prepared for exactly how long they would be in person. Or how huge they would be in person.
Come on.
Smell, you two? You spun around in time for Kyra to snap a picture of you and Cove together, before she pointed her camera at Cliff, trying to get a shot despite his weak protest that she should just enjoy the moment. Your parents were walking behind the group a little, with Mum telling Ma some information she had read about the park in a brochure. Ma listened happily while looking around and taking in the sights, every now and then asking a question or making a joke about something Mum had made. You smiled at them, thinking your mum had just read a lot of pamphlets to know so much about the park. Maybe you should come and work here as a tour guide if you know so much about the place. Elizabeth teased, earning a squeeze on the nose from your mum. She seemed to be enjoying herself, but you thought that might just be because she was amused by everyone else's reactions. Surrounding you on the other side, the enormous trees shot up into the sky, the sunlight peeking through their canopy and speckling the path in front of you. The sheer size of redwoods make you feel like a tiny ant bustling along through the forest. The adults had decided on some casual nature walks rather than any serious hiking, and you strolled along at your own pace, taking in the scenery. Elizabeth sped up a little, smirking at Cove as she fell into place between the two of you, and immediately you could tell by her expression she was gonna say something taunting. I can't believe our families are actually on vacation together. She threw her arms out, speaking in genuine sense of bewilderment. I would have joked about something like this happening, but now I'm not sure I want to give them any more ideas. Cove ignored her completely and continued walking along. Oh, he's even taller than Elizabeth, huh? Just watch next year. They'll be talking about their next new amazing idea. She put on a fake voice deeper than her own. We should just sell both of our houses and move in together. Think of how much we'd save on the mortgage. It was clear that Elizabeth was being sarcastic. Cove simply shook his head, not really bothered by her. You suppose he was used to it by this point? But seriously, they really do act like we're a single family just because we live across the street from each other. Elizabeth gave you and Cove a look, her eyes glinting with mischief as she leered at you.
Yeah.
Maybe one day we'll be related legally. Anyways. She said it as though she was a gossipy old lady. Maybe I guess you and me could get married, Elizabeth. Well, that's the first from you. What? Me? Yeah, that way Airi would be my sister-in-law. That would be fun. Elizabeth stuck her tongue out at Cove, as if the very idea was ridiculous. I'll just ignore. You said nothing, choosing to let your sister prattle to her heart's content. You knew from years of experience that the best way to annoy Elizabeth was by not giving her any attention at all. Are you even listening? Huh? Did you say something? She huffed at you for that one. The day continued on with plenty to see and experience. You passed a few different activities that you would have liked to try out if you had the time, such as kayaking and rock climbing, but Ma said that you would have to wait for another trip. There was a little stream during the walk that you sat beside and lit out a picnic for lunch, nibbling on a selection of fruit, sandwiches, and chips. Various birds flew by overhead, and you made a game out of guessing the species that were hanging out in the trees nearby. You even managed to get a couple of them right, including the kingfisher that grabbed half of Cliff's sandwich. Oof, poor Cliff. It was definitely a special experience and one you'd remember for a long time to come. You smiled to yourself, committing the sights and sounds to memory. Your group made it back to camp just as the sun was setting in the sky, and the stars were appearing one by one. Everyone had enjoyed different parts of it most. You traded stories of what you had thought while you were eating dinner, then afterwards you pitched in to help clean up. You along with Elizabeth and Cove got to head back to the RV early and spend some time together while the parents stayed outside longer. Let me save again. Yes. It was nice to have the space to yourself after the cramped journey there, and while Elizabeth had locked herself in the back room with her headphones, typical teenager, you and Cove were left in the main lounge area. Just hung out. We might as well get comfortable. Who knows how long they'll be out for. He took a seat on the sofa while Cove sat down on the other end, tapping his fingers against his knees. You know, I hardly see you wearing a jacket, especially in summer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I like wearing a few layers as possible. It's easier that way. I'd rather be cold than extra hot, and it's kinda a pain to carry extra clothes around. My parents made me bring this jacket. I'm the opposite of him. I'm the opposite. I like wearing more layers. There's something about a lot of layers that make me feel all snug and comfortable. Yes, I agree, MC. Cove smiled lightly at you and nodded. I've noticed. Wait. Wait, I'm a... Whoa, okay. Seemed to slip out before he had the chance to have a proper think about it. Nothing! You paid no mind. He stood, however, he still did. I didn't mean it like that, you know. I know. Answer with what you do mean then. Isn't there anything at all you think looks good when you see it on someone? Cove mumbled under his breath and you couldn't quite catch his word. He was having a difficult time with the subject. I'm curious. Curious. I don't know. You made an unimpressed sound. Are you sure? Maybe? I don't know, why'd you yeah, I don't know why I wanted to talk about it. Curiosity? Cove was never one to gab on about himself, and you were almost convinced he'd stubbornly hold out, but then his shoulders slumped as he caved into your questioning. Fine. I guess I kinda like ankle bracelets. Ankle bracelets? Yeah, everyone can wear a pretty bracelet. Wrists are cool too, but they're pretty normal. Okay then.
I mean...
But how to? I want to go back. This is so awkward. I'm going back. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm going back now. I'm going back. Yeah. The parents all arrived soon after, each of them climbing into the RV and finding some place to sit down and rest their legs. Elizabeth, having heard the commotion, came out from the room for the first time since arriving and joined you all. You spent the evening chatting and playing a few games, enjoying the last evening of the trip together. Bedtime arrived within the blink of an eye as the group hunkered down for the night. Your mum did a final round to be sure nothing had been left behind. She explained that Cliff was going to start driving early in the morning like on the first day, but would be letting everyone else in the group sleep. There wouldn't be a need for all of them to get up. Now was the time to check you hadn't left anything outside. You, as well as everyone else, were confident you had it all packed up inside the RV, which meant it was time to get some rest before the journey home tomorrow. Your moms and Elizabeth said goodnight, heading to the back room while you climbed up to the loft. Cove and his family got situated below in the previously set arrangement. You tried to get comfortable as a million thoughts were running through your mind. It was hard to believe that the trip was practically over, and before you knew it, you'd be back in your own bed at home. Yes, I need that bed. I had enjoyed it, basically. It was short, that's for sure, but you got to see and do so much during your time here. Pardon. All in all, it was a nice break away from home. The minutes ticked by silently. It didn't take long for the soft snores of Cliff and Kyra to drift up to you. They were asleep now. You wondered if Cove was still awake and decided to poke your head out from the loft to find out. You blinked through the dark. Looking down the hall, you noticed Cove laying on his back, his eyes staring straight up to the ceiling, his seafoam hair spread out on his sleeping bag. He must have felt you watching him because suddenly his eyes locked on yours. It was difficult to see much in the dim light, but you could make out the crooked smile on his face well enough. Wave. Cove waved back, still smiling at you through the dim light. You burrowed yourself under the blanket and pulled out your pencils as silently as possible. Oh, I get to draw? While hidden away in your own little spot, you spent you're not sure how long getting some extra time to enjoy yourself. But at some point your eyes grew heavy and you my god, I'm getting tongue-tied again. But at some point your eyes grew heavy and you gently drifted off into a deep sleep. When you woke up the next morning, it was the rumble of the RV as it traveled the long journey home. Still blinking sleepily, you peeked over the edge of the loft to get a glimpse at what was happening. Cove was sitting with his mum on the couch, the two of them talking quietly. He must have noticed you moving around there, because Cove's ocean blue eyes snapped to yours and gave you a smile. "Morning, Airi." "Good morning, Cove." Soon your mums and Elizabeth emerged from their room, dressed and ready for the day of travel. You spent most of the day hanging out together in the RV, savouring the last few hours of the vacation. Kyra suggested a few different travel games she used to play with Cove when he was younger, and you all had a great time competing against each other. I spy with my little eyes something beginning with D. I don't know. When the RV finally pulled into your street, it was well into the night and you were looking forward to crawling into your bed after the last few days away. Everyone else must have been feeling the same because it was mutually agreed that the unpacking and cleaning the RV would wait until morning. Once home again, you went straight up to your room and dropped onto your bed, shoes and all. Yeah. You had gotten so used to having all the others around you all the time, as well as the rumble of the RV, that it felt oddly quiet being by yourself. With those last few moments drifting through your mind, it wasn't long before you dozed off. Tomorrow, life would go on like normal. And then summer ended. Yes, please. Let me save again. There was no denying it. Today was the last day of summer. Tomorrow, you are heading to class. Yeah. There are aspects of going to school that you missed and others you would happily live without. If only you could pick and mix between bits of the summer and school. Sadly, you can't do that. In reality. You got dressed, not envisaging, how do I pronounce this word? Help. Not investigating the day before, but contemplating what lay ahead of you tomorrow. Life was going to be difficult. You had come to think of the summer vacation as the norm, but school sucked up the majority of the year, where summer vacation was just a respite in the middle. Like in the middle of the year? Summer happens at the end of the year. So rather than it being different, it was kind of a return to the normal? What did your normal life really mean? You considered fondly your mums talk about their summer vacations as kids. You dimly recognized that one year the pattern of school and summer itself would be over for good. It was hard to imagine. You'd gotten distracted, one arm still out of a sleeve. You pulled it through and put your mind back to the present. This season had brought about plenty of changes of its own, like Kara's visit, though that too was coming to an end today. She was interesting to be around. You liked how easy it was to talk to her. You finished dressing, which was good. Cove would be there at any moment. You'd agreed to see his mum off together. Officially, the plan was that he would come over to bring you around to his house when she was ready to set off, but you knew that you'd be hanging out for at least a little while beforehand. Kara's visit had troubled Cove when it first happened. It had been a sudden change thanks to Mr. Holden's infamous tendency to surprise people, but once he was able to adjust, he'd been in pretty good spirits with her around. It was a relief for everyone. The next thought that crossed your mind was, envisaging, envisaging. Oh, so that's how it's pronounced. Why, thank you, Otter Bookworm. Envisaging. Oh my lord, man, English is weird and hard. You strolled down the stairs. Something else might have been able to answer it, but he was your guest. Oh, someone else might have been able to answer it, but he was your guest. It was only a few minutes later when the doorbell rang. As you'd chosen to stand beside it to wait for Cove, there was no delay in pulling it open. Cove was there, just as you'd expected. Seeing you, he smiled gently.
Hey.
Or was it quietly? Quietly, not gently. Hey. Hi Cove, come on in. Once he stepped inside, you beckoned for him to follow you upstairs. Back up in your room, you sat down on your bed and waited for Cove to settle in as you knew he would. With other guests, you might have offered them a seat, but you and Cove were long past those tentative stages of friendship. Your room was as familiar to him as his own. Understandable. You watched as Cove sat down in your desk chair, his preferred spot. He rolled in it closer to the bed to make it easier to chat, tweaking the angle so he was facing you fully. Once happy with the situation, he leaned in towards you, hands held in his lap. His actions weren't one of someone who planned on moving from his spot anytime soon, even though you had an appointment to keep together that day. When's your mom leaving?
Don't worry about it.
We got some time. She's still got a shower and stuff before she goes. She didn't want me to just keep hanging around while she was doing that. He lifted his head, his gaze drifting out the window, and chuckled. I can't believe she's already leaving. Just when I'm getting used to her being there every day. He leaned back in the chair, a wry smile tickling his cheeks. Yeah, she'll be back. He cocked his head thoughtfully before shrugging. He ran his hand through his hair before shaking his head as if shaking off the topic like a dog whimpering off water following a dip in the sea. Cove perched an eyebrow on the chair's arm and propped his jaw against his curled head. There was a natural ease in it to his movements, a familiarity from the echoes of all the times before when he'd sat in that same position. This was a real nice summer. I agree. The camping trip was nice. Nodded in agreement. Cove, still nestled cozily in your chair, smiled at your response. How are your fish doing? Really good. Things in the tank are stable and everybody looks healthy. It was nice to hear you learned from Cove how hard it was to maintain an aquarium. Hinata's been volleyball practice? Not joking. Fish doing volleyball. Hinata has been busy, keeps darting between the plants and going out again when I walk by. Like a game of peekaboo. Or hide and seek. Yeah. Cove idly glanced out of the window. He gave a resigned sigh. It's gonna be harder to surf, you know, with school. It's getting colder out. I might store my board away. Yeah, you didn't feel like not being able to surf was a big deal, but you had sympathy for him. He gave a light smile coupled with a shrug as a response. Airi, Cove. The sudden call from downstairs caught you both unaware. You'd nearly forgotten the world outside your room. From the guilty look off his face, Cove had done the same. Just had a call. Cove's mum is ready to go. If you're quick, she might keep the mandated motherly smothering to a minimum. You doubted that, but it was nice that Mum and Miss Priest had their strange sense of humor in common. Your eyes met Cove's. Wordlessly, you headed downstairs together. Each step on the way there was painfully slow, like he was trying to delay the inevitable. His whole body tensed leaving the house, and Cove froze altogether before you both could cross the street.
Oh.
The door's open. Dad must be taking her stuff out. He swallowed hard. She's really gonna leave. Isn't Cove like some kind of like a cave or something? I don't know. Airi, Cove. Kinda does, not gonna lie. I'm pretty sure Cove is like a cave thing? I don't know. I don't know much. So it's like similar to a cave from what I remember. Yeah, this is not the last time you see your mother. I know, but I got used to having her here. Yeah. It was hard to think of a world where you didn't have— Oh god, why do I keep burping? Pardon. It was hard to think of a world where you didn't have both of your moms living at home with you, so you couldn't even imagine how hurt Cove must have been knowing his mum was leaving. You thought you saw his bottom lip quiver just before he turned his head away from you. He's gonna cry again, isn't he? We don't have to head over if you don't want to. No, it'll be worse if I miss her leaving. Okay. At that, some of the conflict warring on his face eased a bit. Together, you went across the street and inside his house, finding his parents in the living room surrounded by his mum's packed things. Hey kids. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, you know? Yeah, like between like a cave and a bay and scale, perhaps. Good timing, I just called the taxi.
Hi.
And hi, Airi. I'm so glad I get to see you today. It was fabulous getting to know you this summer. I finally got to put a face to the name I heard so many times. She winked and Cove pouted on cue over her teasing. Yeah, I really did, thank you. Nodding, Kyra turned her attention back to her boys. She patted Cliff on the arm with a warm smile, and then she enveloped Cove in a crushing hug. Initially, Cove squirmed back to break free from her grip, but his mum was unfazed and kept him locked in place. Heartbeats later, he gave in and hugged her back tightly.
I'm so glad.
I'm so happy this trip was a success. Cliff looked like he was bursting with pride. And then Cove stiffened. Kyra loosened her hold on him enough to study his face, concerned. She spoke her next words in a whisper that had been meant just for her son.
What do you think?
Do you want to unshelve it? Raising an eyebrow, Cliff watched them carefully. His smile began to falter.
What's wrong?
What's wrong? Cove sighed as his gaze flickered over you for a moment, then just as quick, it was back on his parents.
It's okay.
That's alright.
Really?
Are you sure? I don't want to do it now. I can tell Dad later. Nervously, you watched the exchange with the growing suspicion that Cove didn't want to have the— No pouting, Cove sprite. Wonder what Pelting Cove looks like. I do wonder. That is true. To be fair, that one would have taken a lot of work just to add in another expression, I guess. You didn't want the conversation to have the conversation while you were there. You wondered if you should offer to leave when Kyra gave Cove a pat on the head.
Alright.
You can always call me if you want me to be part of the conversation, okay? I'll call. Thanks, Mum. Cliff still looked baffled about what Kyra and Cove were referring to, but you watched as his shoulders slowly relaxed. You figured that he decided to wait for Cove to be ready to talk to him. And with Cliff's silence, things seemed to be settled in for now. After that, it wasn't long before the taxi arrived, rolling up in front of the house and in clear view of the open door. Kyra stood up, smiling sadly. Well, that's my ride. Yeah. The matching reply got a chuckle out of Kyra as you all filed out of the house. Father and son with Kyra's bags in hand. Like father and son, I guess. Once outside, you spotted your family waiting by the street, and to your surprise, Derek was also with them. He stood uncomfortably and waved as soon as you noticed him. Oh, hey, Derek.
What's up?
Hey, Airi. Hey, Cove. When did you get here? My dad dropped me off just a little bit ago, though thought I could visit one more time before school started.
Sorry.
You picked up a busy time, sorry. Derek couldn't even look at Cove. He nervously kept rolling a pebble with the bottom of his shoe.
Sorry.
I wasn't thinking that your mum would be leaving today. I'm sorry, dude. What? You're not interrupting anything. You're always welcome here. It would have been sad if I didn't get to say goodbye before leaving. Derek came to hang out often, so it was inevitable that the two had met at some point this season. I think so too. It was apparent Derek would have preferred to have gotten there at a more opportune moment. He never liked seeming impolite, but their reassuring words soothed his worries. The tension he was holding in his body lessened, and he looked like he was feeling much more like himself. Bye, Derek. It was fun not getting to know you. Bye, ma'am. Is there anything I can do to help? Nah, don't worry yourself over that. We're just about to set. In that short amount of time, Cliff had gathered and packed the bags into the trunk. Kyra took one last look at everyone and sighed. Alright, I don't want to keep the driver waiting. It's time to head out. The little crowd had formed around and started their chorus of farewells and well wishes traveling, but Kyra still made no move to get into the taxi. She placed her attention on Cove. I'll call when I get to the airport and when I make it to Nevada. Also, you better call the moment you walk in the door at home, otherwise we'll be wondering all night if you got into trouble all the way there.
Can do.
I can do that. And could you call me tomorrow too, so I can tell you how school went? Of course, I want to hear all about it. Save one more time. Kyra put a hand on Cove's head and affectionately ruffled his hair one last time. She then let go, only to move into squeezing his cheeks in her hands instead. But Mom,
Cove.
I love you so much, baby. She was chuckling by the time she freed him and rounded things off with a small tap to the tip of his nose. Cove rubbed at his face with a grin. Finally, she walked to the car, wavering, and patted her seat in the taxi. Cliff hooked an arm around Cove's shoulder and kept him close as it began to pull away. For a moment, Cove looked up his dad, then wrapped an arm across his back. Nice.
Bye.
Bye, Mum. Bye. Travel safe. Kara rolled down the window and stuck her head out of it. She waved again while blowing kisses at Cove and Cliff. See you again? Aw. Family moment. Before she was out of sight, you decided to wave goodbye. As the taxi headed down the road, you stuck your hand in the air to send her off. The cab turned down another road and completely disappeared from view. Cove let go of his dad and took a few steps out into the empty street, still looking in the direction his mum went. He smiled quietly, deep in thought. You got the impression Cove was feeling better than he was earlier. He was finally content with the things were. Nice. You jumped a bit when your mum put a hand on your shoulder, pulling you away from your thoughts. She smiled when you looked at her. This was a great vacation, huh? It was. You nodded in agreement. Yeah, it was a good one. Cove walked back over to the group, still genuinely happy. Derek grinned at him welcomely, and everyone else there smiled at him, even Elizabeth.
Well?
Ma clapped her hands together, bringing everyone's attention back to the present. It's almost lunchtime. I think I'll put something special together. Her eyes sparkled with a plan, and Mum smiled. I bet you could use some help with that. That'd be absolutely wonderful. Derek glanced between the two, his eyebrows furrowed. Is there anything I could do? Man, you really love to help people, huh, Derek? Your mums exchanged a fond expression. Ma shook her head.
How sweet.
That's very sweet. That's very sweet, Derek, but it's alright. It's not your job. Technically, your dad left you under Cliff's watch. You're meant to be taken care of by him, not doing chores for the neighbors. Mum laughed a little over her own joke. You watched Derek look away discouraged.
It's okay.
It's okay, I don't mind. He was a little bashful about it. You wondered if Mum's joke had just reminded him that he wasn't initially meant to be invited for lunch. It was getting a little awkward. Mum grinned sympathetically. Her comment was meant to lighten the mood, not bring it back down. Ma tried again to get things moving forward again. Why don't you kids go have fun? You can all come back in about an hour. We'll make enough for everyone. Mum nodded in agreement.
Sounds good.
Another stunning idea, Lani. Thanks. What?
Sounds good.
Another stunning idea, Lani. Hold up. Hold up. Why is Cove's name up here? He didn't say anything. It should be the other mum. Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, wait a minute.
Sounds good.
No, I get it now. I get the dialogue. No, never mind. I was being dumb. No.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Ignore what I just said before. You heard nothing. That sounds like a plan. Then, I don't want to cramp your style. I've got some stuff to work on, but I can't be out of your hair this afternoon. You should come by later too. No reason you should be the odd man out. Mum seems amused as Cliff rubbed his neck nervously. He grinned a wavering but pleased smile.
Thanks very much.
I appreciate the invite. He looked over the assembled crowd with knowing glances. I can help too. With as many people as you're feeding, that's going to be a lot of food. Didn't you hear what we told Derek? It wouldn't be fair to make you cook when we're the ones who are inviting you in. Ma raised an eyebrow when Cliff waved it off.
Come on.
I insist. Derek would be missing time with his pals. This would be a break for me. I'm quite the chef. Ma and Mom exchanged further glances before Mum shrugged.
True.
An airtight argument. If you're sure, we'll be happy to have you, Chef Cliff. Where's the lamb sauce? Cliff's grin widened and seemed more hyped than you expect him to be about helping with lunch. Cove shook his head, a fond smile on his face. Then all the grown-up people will be heading inside. I assume the rest of you kiddos will be staying out. Maybe not all of them. Ma tilted her head, a silent question for Elizabeth. Your sister thought for a moment.
Alright.
I'll stay with the kids.
That's fantastic.
That's great. Both your mums smiled at her, while Derek and Cove didn't seem to appreciate her phrasing. But with the plan decided, all three parents waved and headed for your house. It was just you teenagers now. I'm pretty sure the three of us are twins, and you are and Elizabeth here is the only teenager here. Since the main character and both Cove and Derek are 13 years old from what I remember. So no, you guys are not teens, you're tweens right now. At the cusp of being teens though. Elizabeth looked at you and the others, a curious expression on her face. So, what now? You silently wondered if Elizabeth only stayed out with you to avoid getting roped into work. Then again, she could just genuinely want to hang out. You couldn't tell with your sister. Cove spoke up after no one else did to answer Elizabeth's question. Want to go down to the shopping street? It's been a while, and I don't think there's a lot of things we could agree on. Yeah, sure.
Awesome.
Sounds awesome to me. Unlike you guys, I haven't been there 1,001 times. It's new to me. Yeah, let's go. Let's go. You strode across the road as a group, down to the beach and then to the left. It took less than 15 minutes to arrive, one of the conveniences of Sunset Bird. The four of you looked around the familiar shops, trying to see if anything caught your attention this time. Derek was the most enthusiastic. He checked out every store with his eyes wide with wonder. Elizabeth and Cove were in good spirits as well. That's so cool! He ran over to a street magician who was currently doing a card trick for a group of enchanted tourists. Derek clapped when the magician showed a middle-aged man his card. Derek turned back to the group with a curious gleam on his face. What does it take to perform here anyways? Do you have to ask somebody, or do you just show up and start doing stuff? Who would you even ask? It's a public street. Hey, Miss Mayor, can I pull a rabbit out of my hat, please? Flopsy is well behaved, I promised. Derek chuckled, his eyes searching up and down the scene. Maybe there's a boss off the shopping street. Oh god. No one does any of this around my neighborhood. It's just regular stores behind walls. It's different if someone wants a real store, but here I'm pretty sure people are just putting on their little shows whenever they want and do whatever. Sounds like Cuba Street. That's so neat. Would we be allowed to do something too? Cove laughed and Derek began almost vibrating with excitement. Elizabeth rolled her eyes. What would we do? Well, I don't know what. Not yet. I mean, I just found out it's a possibility, you know? But there's gotta be something. We know cool stuff. I'm sure if we think about it, we could plan a show that really get a crowd pumped. Derek continued to brainstorm out loud about different potential performances, while you glanced over at Cove and Elizabeth. I mean, I can bounce a soccer ball on my head. Last time I tried, I got 8 bounces before it fell. I wouldn't bring a ball here. Why not? Cove gestured everything around, the stores, the people, all the colourful chaos that made up the shopping street. He has a point, you know. Would you want to chase a lost ball here? And what if it hits somebody? Even if you're good, someone else could bump into you. That's true. Derek thought about it some more. Then he watched another performer, a woman doing tricks with two small dogs. One was fluffy and cream-colored, while the other was a cool grey. The woman held up rings. Both animals jumped through the openings, happy to receive a treat at the end. Derek brightened. Maybe I'll teach crabs how to race. Crabs? It could work. With some amusement, the gang continued to peruse the stalls. Elizabeth found some earrings with a dangling, badly misprinted globe that everyone laughed at. I bet New Zealand isn't on that. Cove picked up a blob as Iceland, but Derek thought it had to be Greenland. You know, this is a world with what looks like 9 continents. I think you're both wrong. No, it's Australia. The other three giggled at your interjection. Suddenly Cove froze. You stared at him, then tried to see what caught his attention. Then you saw a familiar face. It all makes sense. Between the crowds, his bright head stood out like a neon green bowl in a kitchen sink. It was Jeremy. Jeremy slowly drifted his eyes down the street, and his eyes widened in mutual recognition. He definitely noticed you. Derek followed and Cove sighed. Neither of them were happy to see him again. You looked away. You didn't want to even start with Jeremy's shenanigans today. I agree. Elizabeth raised an eyebrow. Her gaze swept over Jeremy without a hint of a clue. Jeremy simply scoffed to himself and waddled deeper into the crowd of people. Derek relaxed and exhaled loudly. I'm glad he's not going to start anything. He peeked over at Elizabeth with a tiny smirk. See, that was a mean kid.
What?
Huh? She still didn't get it. That first summer day hadn't made nearly as much of an impression on her as it did for Derek, but he still smiled and waved it off. Just forget about him. I already have. He laughed and Cove smiled lightly. He seemed to be in a much better mood now that Jeremy was gone. Your eyes wandered over to where Jeremy disappeared. You hadn't forgotten the day you met him either. He was going to be in town for a vacation with the parents he hated. That glimpse was probably the last time you would ever see him. Elizabeth snapped her fingers in front of your face. Apparently you had spaced out. Cove and Derek were already at the next stall. Come on, unless you want to get lift here. You nodded and caught up with the others. Cove raised an eyebrow. What are you thinking about? Nothing. He gave you a searching look, but let it drop when Derek yelled at you to go check something out. You couldn't help but wonder though, what would have happened if you had interacted with Jeremy more? You were glad that you wouldn't find out. Jeremy was unlike anyone you had ever met before. Yeah, I don't know what to think of it. You and the group moved on from the stall and away and from Jeremy. It didn't take long for everyone to return to the joking. You all enjoyed what little time you had as Elizabeth mentioned the hour was almost up. The little trip had flown by and lunch must have been waiting for you now. Derek bounced on the balls of his feet.
Okay.
Come on guys, let's get going so we can eat. I'm starving. Cove stretched one of his arms lazily. Let's go then. You looked at him appraisingly. I'm assuming that's how it's pronounced. Piggyback, no thanks. You nodded at him. Then you followed Elizabeth as she took it upon herself to lead the way home. She walked fast, much faster than Derek preferred. She kept gaining a lead, and then Derek would jog back up to the group. With Cove's long legs, he had no trouble keeping up. Fuck it. You kept close to your neighbor. You both chatted about the things you'd see at the shopping street, with Derek chiming in every so often. You caught Cove smiling at you a couple of times. He was happy you were spending time with him. It was a pleasant walk home, and in no time you had made it back. Derek got the front door and held it open for everyone as you each moseyed inside. The three parents were still in the kitchen. They looked up and waved. Welcome back, everyone. You made it just in time.
Hey.
I hope you're hungry. So, did everyone have a nice time out? She gestured for people to take a seat at the table. Plates and silverware have already been placed out. You took your normal seat. Elizabeth sat across from you and Derek took the seat to your left. Cove sat on your right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're having a great time. That was fine. Cove shrugged, not willing to say any more than that. Yeah, the bank height. Your joke got some chuckles going around the table. That's good in my book. Casually, Mr. Holden sat in the empty streets across from. Oh, I read it wrong. Casually, Mr. Holden sat in the empty seats across from Cove. He smiled at you and all the other kids. Mum set down a platter full of water glasses on the table. She looked down at the gathering. It's a good thing we have 8 chairs. I can't remember the last time we've had a group this big over for a meal. Can you pass the drinks down the other side? Make sure you all get one. Sure. Those close to the cups obliged and started offering waters around. As everything got set up, Ma challenged Elizabeth to take her elbows off the table.
Now.
And you shouldn't slouch. I slouch a lot though. She pointed to Mr. Holden, who was leaning forward with both arms on the table. Oops. Mr. Holden seemed unsure about all the sudden attention and carefully rearranged his posture to something suitable for a fancy dinner. He smiled sheepishly at Ma. Elizabeth rolled her eyes and Ma gave a level look at her. And you shouldn't be impolite to a guest in the house either. Elizabeth groaned, long suffering. Ma giggled and Mr. Holden chuckled.
Not bad.
A lot of you could learn a thing or two from Derek. He has the best manners here. Derek blushed, but it was true. His posture was upright and formal. He even held his fork gracefully. Damn. His table manners, on top of all his attempts to aid your parents, made him the model meal attendee behavior. The model of meal attendee behavior. No.
Aww.
That's nothing. It's true though. You have been a lovely guest. I've noticed that too. It's always nice when you stay over, Derek. Derek smiled and sat a little taller in his chair. Do you have anything good to say about our other guests? She looked deliberately at Cove with a teasing smirk. Or is there just nothing to say? Well, Cove is my number one, but he does still clean his hands by wiping them on his... No, that is not a good... No, you need to wash your hands for 20 seconds with soap. I don't think wiping them on his pants is a viable way to clean your hands, mate. Cove frowned at that and he absently brushed his hands on his pants sleeves. Your mums laughed lightly.
There.
Elizabeth, you should know, after all these years, Cove is hardly a guest anymore. Cove smiled awkwardly. Thanks. Matters. Yeah, I'll keep quiet. The parents made an excellent lunch. You took another bite and minded your business. Everyone ate their meals together and continued to hang out for the afternoon. After the food... for the afternoon. After the food, you and the others played a couple games and talked about plans for the upcoming year. The time passed by quickly, and soon it was time to part ways. Mr. Holden talked to your mums, and Cove drifted over to you, knowing that as soon as his dad finished up, he would be leaving. It'd be cool to stay, but we have some stuff to do before everything closes today.
Okay.
Yeah, bye. Could you move? I need the phone. Cove raised an eyebrow, and Elizabeth patiently gestured behind him. Cove realized he was standing right in front of where the receiver was placed. He sidestepped out of the way and shook his head, clearly thinking Elizabeth was rushing too much. Your sister made a beeline for the phone and started dialing the number of what you figured was one of her friends. Knowing Elizabeth, she was going to be on there for a while. You, Cove, and Derek shuffled closer to the door. It seems like Mr. Holden was wrapping up his conversation, so everyone started saying their various farewells.
Talk to you later.
See you later, Cove. We gotta do this again sometime. Yeah, see ya. Cove turned to you and smiled slightly. Bye, Airi. Hug, pat, nudge, wave. You accompanied the gesture with a smile on your face. Cove nodded and waved back, reluctant to leave. Seriously, dude? We'll have to hang out later. I'm gonna miss you during school. You punched Cove's arm softly. Cove still rubbed the spot afterwards. Cove and his dad left soon after that. Your parents started cleaning up the house, and Elizabeth was still chatting to her friends on her phone. It was just you and Derek left. He elected to stay outside of the house and wait for his dad to pick him up. You decided to keep your guest company, although he was originally Cove's visitor. A light summer breeze blew through your hair, and Derek shifted his weight from foot to foot. Sometime? Sometime? What do you mean by sometime? Thank you for waiting with me. He kicked at the ground drastically.
Well.
Distractingly. Distractingly, is it? Distractedly.
Well.
Dad's still gonna be here a while. Do you wanna go for a walk? Sure, I don't mind. The two of you walked down the street again, just wandering without a destination planned. It was a quiet stroll, too quiet for Derek being the company. You turned to him when you had noticed that he wasn't saying a word. That was unusual. Derek always had something he could chat about. You weren't sure if you should ask about it. Somehow you ended up at the old park near the beach. You glanced over to Derek once more, still expecting him to say something any second now. However, nothing came from him. In fact, you noticed a frown creeping on his face. Derek smiled when he realized you were watching. At least his mouth turned up. There wasn't anything that really felt happy in the expression. He turned away and the smile fell off his face. You alright? His eyes stared intently at the ground, and you raised an eyebrow. Is everything alright? I'm a little sad. It's just with school starting back up again, it's gonna be harder to visit. I'm gonna have homework and clubs and practices and everything else. Yeah. School tends to do that with you as you grow up, I guess. It really sucks to go to different schools. His face screwed up and his fists were closely tied together. This was really concerning him. What if we don't have time? We'll make time. We can talk over the phone and have plans for the weekends. We'll be okay. Derek looked up at the sky. It was orange and purple with little wisps of clouds scattered around. A plane flew high with a jet stream trailing behind it. Then he turned to the ground again. Derek's face was tilted far enough down that it was harder to read his expression. Hey Airi, I actually wanted to talk to you about something, if you don't mind. There was a pause and you waited for him to finish his thoughts.
Sorry.
I was kind of wondering, do you like guys at all? Like, would you ever be with someone who was a boy? Sorry if that's weird to ask. Maybe? Okay, then. He hesitated before finishing his question. So, what I mean is, just, is there any guy you think is kinda cool, like, that you like around here? Not at school or anything like that. He ducked his head further and you thought about it. Don't tell me you have a crush on me. Well, I like her. No. not now. Yeah, let's go with the good old. I'm neutral to everyone. Oh, Derek shrugged, then started to mumble and wonder. Maybe you don't get what I'm trying to ask. No, I kinda don't get what I'm trying to ask. What you're trying to ask. So Derek pulled himself together. Somewhat meekly, he looked at you while he tried to project confidence. His posture was too tight for you to believe it. He was nervous.
Alright.
You know, thinking ahead and everything is important. You gotta get yourself a game plan and all that. It's good to make plans, especially backup plans. He babbled, all full of energy and forced gusto. Well, anyways, I heard about this thing where people make pacts with their good friends and that if they don't find anyone else, then they get together. Together, like they get married and stuff. Dude. So I was thinking, since it's good to have plans, it might be cool if we did something like that. His eyes widened and he started to make frantic hand gestures. Oh, he has a crush, doesn't he? Just so you know, then we'd never have to worry about the future or finding someone. We can set it like a whole decade in the future, forever from now. We'd have graduated high school and probably college too. We'd have jobs and be really grown up. I mean, we'd probably have our own places and maybe our own pets and student loans and cars. Yeah, it's almost 4 hours, I've realized. I think after I do the, what's it called? Yeah, almost the 4 hour mark. Imagine it went up to 5 hours. I don't want to do 5 hours. My throat will actually die from trying to stream for 5 hours. It's already dying now. It's already beginning to die, sort of. But yeah, I will end stream once I'm done with like the first intro part of like step 3, which is the chapter after this. So yeah, what do you think? Do you like me? I don't think that will work, yeah. Aw, don't worry about it. That's okay. It was just an idea. Thanks for hearing me out and answering my questions and stuff. Yeah, sorry Derek, but I don't think that will work. You felt a little worried that Derek wasn't happy. When he saw your face, he smiled encouragingly.
It's okay.
I promise, I'm not mad. I was just wondering. I'm sure things will be okay in the future, no matter what. You just nodded. You didn't spend much longer at the park after that. Derek didn't want to miss his dad, so you both made your way back to your street. After Derek went back home, you decided to settle in for the night. Stretching your arms over your head, you noticed that the living room and phone was free. You called Lee. I want to call Lee. You picked up the receiver and quickly punched in the familiar number while trying to take a seat on the couch. Soon enough, after explaining the situation to the housekeeper, Lee answered. Hey, Lee! Good to see you back. Hi Lee, can you talk? Definitely, we practically have to. My gosh, can you believe it's almost time for school to start? What happened to our summer? School starts first thing tomorrow for me. Ew, and I have to start next week. And I thought starting next week was bad enough. Enjoy your last week. Oh, I will. I hope you'll survive your first day. I think it'll be okay. School isn't too bad. That's true. Maybe it'll end up being a really good year. And at least summer was nice while it lasted, right? We were busy. Yeah. Fondly, you thought about all the best memories you had this summer. Lee was there for some, but there were still many you hadn't filled her in on yet. You began to speak about the road trip you took. I went on a vacation. Cove's parents ended up inviting my whole family on an RV road trip.
Really?
Oh, that's awesome. It was a 3-day trip and we visited the Redwood National Forest. Lucky. I hope the RV wasn't small. Lee laughed. Wait. I hope the RV wasn't small. Lee laughed, trying to imagine how busy it must have been for 7 people sharing such little space. Yeah, I know, right? The thought had you laughing too, remembering the ups and downs of the trip. You were happy Mr. Holden and Kyra invited you. It wasn't bad. We had a good time. You began to speak about that incredibly hot afternoon. I remembered the hottest day this summer. I could barely do anything and had to stay inside the entire afternoon. Ah? I played tic-tac. Did you win? No. Darn, but it was still fun though. What's your big highlight for the summer? Your big highlight of the summer, Lee? Talking to you is always the best part of my summer. Even though it's just a phone call, you just knew that Lee was winking at you. That had... wait, no. Let's go with Alright, so a high point for me was when I took that trip with my parents to Europe. That was amazing. You went to Europe? Well, you and Lee continued to go on over your adventures until you were both yawning to each other over the phone. At that, you decided to say goodbye. It was time to say goodbye for now. You did have school to wake up in the morning. Bye, Lee.
Bye.
Alright, Airi. Talk to you later. You left the phone on the side table for now. Looking at the clock on the wall, you saw that there was only about 10 minutes before your rooms would be insisting you had to go to bed so you could be rested enough for school. You stretched your legs out on the couch and sighed in defeat, watching the 3-minute hand change 1 minute closer to bedtime. You rearranged yourself, feeling restless, and looked out the window. Startled initially, you spotted a figure out in the hills. It was Cove. When the surprise faded, you realized it wasn't that much of a shock at all. It was exactly something Cove would do. Why not? Strolling casually, you went over to the front door. When you arrived, you noticed how many fireflies were out that night. They drifted along lazily, barely minding your presence as you wadded through to reach the top of the hill. Oh my god, I'm getting tongue-tied again. Cove turned towards you as you approached, and you noticed right away that Cove looked happy to see you. Hey. You had a bounce in your step. You weren't sure how long you'd get before your mums roped you back inside for bed. Hey, what are you doing out here?
Nothing.
Nothing. Not really. He shrugged, seeming unhappy with his own answer. You stared at him, waiting for him to continue. Well, I'm feeling kind of weird about stuff, so I'm getting more fresh air before bed. Understood. His mouth pulled into a bent smile. Cove let himself fall back onto his butt, and then all the way down so he was laying on his back. He looked up at the sky. You sat on his chest, JK. Just sit on the grass. You lowered yourself to sit nearby. He had been lost in thought or was possibly waiting for you to situate yourself, but he started speaking unprompted again.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry for being kind of awkward when my mum was leaving. Surprised, you stared at him at a moment. You weren't expecting that. I just wanted you to know that I talked to my dad about how I felt and things. It's okay now. Yeah, I can tell by the huge mood shift after the first step. You were genuinely glad to hear that, and it brought a small smile to your face, but your thoughts quickly wandered back to the first day you met Mr. Holden. Did his dad confess about that? From the way Cove talked, you guess he hadn't. So there was more Cove and his dad should talk. So there was more Cove and his dad should talk about, but it was a relief to know that they had made a start. Yeah, nice. Now was not a good time to bring up what you were thinking though. You could wait longer to say it. It was almost unbelievable how much... Try say it again. Huh? Say it again. It was almost unbelievable how much an impact he made on your life just by moving in next door. You couldn't even imagine what your days might have looked like in a world where you hadn't met him. Cove glanced back at you, waiting for a response. You had no idea what to say. Then, still, without a word from you, Cove shook his head strongly. What? It's you. Huh? He snickered before answering. You looked thoroughly amused by your reaction. That's what you do all the time, so I'm being you. Got that. Feeling self-conscious, you glanced at the ground and felt a blush burn across your face. Yeah, no. When you did to look back, you saw Cove was smiling apologetically. He wasn't trying to be mean with it. Honestly, there weren't many people